Louisa Palffy, stranger from the internet. Prologue. Only two things in my head were not aligned. First, how come it doesn't scare me? After all, social networks are a place where I should be very careful, right? I should stop it for good. And the second, staying on Instagram, because it's obvious that I'm just imagining all this bad stuff. One part of me wanted to stop, but the other wanted to find out more about him. The first chapter. Rebecca. There was too much noise everywhere to read in the corridor. It was my last days before the holidays and leaving for Bratislava. The school affected me like a prison today. All the same teachers, supervisors, and students walking up and down the corridors like prisoners. I put on my headphones and moved to the classroom. I sat down in my favorite place by the window and opened a book. When Romeo confessed his love to Juliet under the flowery balcony, the teacher challenged me to give an oral answer. It turned out terrible because I couldn't concentrate at all. After school, I got on the train and moved from Zelina to a small town near Martin. I live in Monastery under the castle. We have a small house, a big garden, in which I have my favorite place. A swing on a tree. I like to read there, but I like to write there the most. It's often like a trash can in my head. There is a lot and nothing properly sorted. Livia, or Livy, my sister, by the way, recommended me to write down all those thoughts in notes on my mobile phone, and in fact, it's quite effective. Livy is 14 and we get along quite well for her teenage years. I'm 18, so that you're at least a little aware. It was comfortable on the train, as I was already used to traveling. Clouds covered the whole of Turiek today. It got dark, and from behind the windows I saw crooked white shapes that represented lightning, and it started to rain. But it wasn't the kind of autumn rain that beats on your hood and makes you nervous. It was a summer June rain, warm and pleasant. I got off the train and ran to the bus station not far from the train station. I barely made it to the bus because it was many hours, but the man on it happily waited for me because he takes the same bus every day. I came home and took off my clothes. Livy and my parents were not at home. It was Friday, so they went on a trip somewhere. Dad must have told me this several times, but I, with my scattered thoughts, just nodded, but I don't remember what. Of course, I remember they went hiking in the mountains. By the way, my name is Rebecca. People call me Becky. You can call me that too if we ever meet. You're probably saying, do I have a boyfriend, so when I'm 18 I go to high school? I had. Freshman year in high school, but somehow it didn't turn out the way I expected, and it ended up being a disappointment. I haven't seen Adam since then, and they say he now lives somewhere near Bratislava. The microwave suddenly beeped. I warmed up the food my mother had left for me before they left. I ate and watched TV. I washed the dishes, mopped, and put them in the right place. As I was putting the last plate away, something occurred to me. Livy was right about me writing down my thoughts and quotes that pop into my head in my notes, but she didn't think that I could publish my quotes. That's a great idea. I flew up the stairs and turned on the computer. I had a lot of ideas swirling in my head, how my site or blog could look like. I went through many ways to make it happen. People wrote that I could create something like this on Twitter or Facebook, but I found Instagram to be the best option. People wrote a lot of texts and tips for a good Instagram account. If you want to be successful, you have to choose a topic. Yes, I already had a topic. They also wrote, you have to come up with a suitable name so that people can find you. Well, that will be a bit of a problem. I don't have a name. I can see your expressions. They're wondering how come this girl doesn't know how to use Instagram. In our family, apart from Livy, we somehow do not deal with social networks. Mom would prefer to write letters on a typewriter or by hand. I never had Instagram or anything like that. I was working, at most on Messenger or WhatsApp. I moved from the desk to the top floor of my bunk bed. I hissed on the ladder and lay on my back. It's going to be a bit of a problem coming up with a name. I thought about it. I thought of different variants, Quotus Bibixi, Thoughts Off Girls, or Mythoughts. There were many combinations, but none seemed right to me. I took a deep breath, That's my trick to stop the rush of thoughts. And as for my overthinking, it's really unbearable. I keep thinking where I made a mistake, but after all, maybe that thinking is a mistake. Unsettled by my feelings, I then spend most of my time alone. Mom is already desperate for me because I never go anywhere. Mom takes the blame on herself, and so does Dad. They say they raised me badly, but I tell them that my thought processes have nothing to do with upbringing. Who knows why I'm like this? Sometimes I feel like a unicorn. Inconsequential, stubborn, and lonely, yet unique. Many times it happens that I do nothing but think. I had 1,200,000 urges to give up, so I went to the balcony to air out. I sat on the hammock, which is hung almost over the entire balcony. I took the open book in my hand and looked at the cover of the open book. On it was an unknown lady in a black hat and a rose in her hand. However, I only knew the author by name so far, and I haven't read any of her books yet. I like to read books that I know nothing about. And then it occurred to me, a stranger with a name. A smile lit up my face. The second chapter. I woke up in the morning with something pressing hard on my cheek. I held in pain and ran to the mirror. I had about half of the keyboard imprinted on my right cheek. It was a terrible sight when I saw myself in the mirror and had a rather prominent A and many other letters tattooed on my cheek. I turned on my Bluetooth headphones and played songs from my cell phone. Yesterday's idea made me so giddy that I wanted to clean, and that's a very bad stage of joy. I took advantage of the fact that ours are not at home, so I play music throughout the house, but in moderation. That is, until my 100-year-old neighbor rang my doorbell. She is nice and makes really tasty desserts, but she is terribly observant and everything bothers her. She literally has ears everywhere. I apologize to you. I promise I'll put it quietly. Although it seemed to me that he couldn't hear it that much at 20. She left. When I finished cleaning, I started cooking lunch. I thought the chicken broth and French fries were fine. I spent more than 2 hours having lunch and baked brownies with Nutella. My thoughts were still with my idea. I was literally obsessed with it. I sat down by the oven where my cookies were baking and grabbed the phone. I wrote a list of things that I have already thought of. I haven't come up with a description yet. It occurred to me that I don't just have to post, but that I can also help people. The caption so far read, "If you need help, I'm here, just write to me." Terrible, huh? But that's enough for a start. I read a lot of reviews about social networks. I know they can be dangerous. People are unpredictable these days. They try to take advantage of anything. That was the reason why I didn't want to have contact with people on the internet. But it's different now. I hope. If I don't try it, I won't know what it's like. I took a breath and opened Google Play. I entered Instagram in the search and clicked the install button. I waited a minute and opened the app. I turned on the username and password, and the account was created. I smiled. I don't even know why. Maybe because I was happy to have a place where I could be myself. I started to transcribe my thoughts into different pictures. They were all brown. The font was interesting. I liked him. The first post was already published in the afternoon. I was looking forward to it, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. That my followers won't increase by hundreds per day, but I didn't even want that. I didn't do it for others, but rather for myself. I had enough of my cell phone for today. Summer vacation is in a few days, and I didn't want to waste it typing on my phone. It's my last vacation here at home, then I'll be a Bratislava. I changed into something more tasteful, something suitable for the city. Definitely don't look in my closet for a dress. I might have one. No, I don't wear it. I'm not like other 18-year-old babies my age. I picked up bell-bottoms with a delicate floral white pattern at the belt and a honey yellow t-shirt. I put on my Converse and got into our little white family car. I'm 18, so I can drive by myself. I love car rides. I drove out of our small village and went to Martin. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so the city was full of people. I left the car at the Touriette Gallery and walked towards the square. I was terribly hot, so I cooled down with ice cream. Do you love salted caramel as much as I do? I sat down in the shade and watched the surroundings. A few people were familiar to me, mainly a group of 3 people. My classmates from high school. Apparently they changed Selena to Martin. They greeted me. It was forced, it was visible on them. Although I never tell anyone, not even my parents, sister, or anyone else, I feel sorry for not having friends. You know, but when you are alone for a long time you start to think that the problem is in you. It's probably. The problem is not in them but in me, because I'm afraid to get to know someone again. I am afraid that he will disappoint me again, that he will betray me, that he will hurt me. The wounds will remain, whether physical or psychological, whether from the past or the present. They will always, always be there. We all have these wounds. I have them too. And since I broke up with Adam, I perceive them even more. He betrayed me and I never completely forgot it. I forgave him, but I didn't forget. At least I can discuss my feelings with someone. My parents have always supported me and so has Livy. I am grateful to them. I think you are wondering where I met Adam. He was a nice guy. We met at school. Smiling, kind, but changed. He started taking me out somewhere with his friends, but I didn't want to. He forced me to do things that I refused, such as smoking. I was only 16 and I definitely didn't want to smoke. He started telling me that the fault was in me. After that we met less and less and I avoided him. Well, that's it. The chapter of me and Adam is closed, temporarily, until my memories come back. I'm really waiting for someone to change my view of guys. Well, there's no one like that in my neighborhood. I finished my ice cream and walked to the car. It was 5:30 and I didn't want to go home yet. I called ours that I was fine so that they would be sure and not worried. They were hiking somewhere in the Tatras. I went on Tatra hikes when I was little. Livy will still do it with ours, but I don't know how long she will enjoy it, to be honest. I don't give it much time. At the moment, I didn't know where I was going this time, so I just followed the signs. It took me somewhere beyond Zelina. I recognized it here. A small forest by the lake and a swing above the lake. I parked a short distance away and got out of the car. It smelled nice in here. So fresh. This place is only mine. Actually, almost no one knows about it. I like to come here after school. I walked the dirt road to the lake. No one was here today but me. I approached the steps and sat on the swing. I rocked and flew. Over the lake it's a real adrenaline rush, but the experience is worth it. The way back was long. I don't like driving in the evening. There are many deer on the roads and I am afraid that something will happen to them or me. I'm afraid of being run over by a car, so I prefer to go during the day. There weren't that many cars under Struckno, so I walked this whole way in an hour or so. I arrived home at 8:30. I showered, ate brownies, changed a few TV channels, and went to bed in my room. But even before that, I was surprised by a pleasant little thing. 2 new subscriptions appeared on my account. Well, I went to sleep contentedly. The next morning, I called my parents when they planned to come. They said they would be home at 7. I went to cut some of the brownies. I cut it on a porcelain plate and walked over to the TV with the treat. I honestly didn't notice what was on TV. I just blankly watched the pictures. When I finished eating, I rewrote my next thought and shared it on Instagram. The day passed quickly, very quickly. I was pleased with a few new people and new likes. I already had 10 followers. I had lunch and somehow managed to fall asleep on the couch watching a new movie that came out on Netflix. I don't know if he was so boring or if I was just tired. I was woken up by the doorbell. "Becky, open it, please," shouted Mom. I sleepily shuffled into the corridor and greeted our family. Livy muttered how great it was for the whole hour. I just nodded. I was so tired that I couldn't find the words. They brought me magnets, which made me quite happy. We had dinner together, made by Livy and Dad. Meanwhile, my mother was unpacking her suitcases, and I was still lying on the couch in my energy-saving mode. We had dinner, Livy and I washed the dishes, and then we fought over the remote control to see who would choose the movie today. She won. So we watched what she wanted. Another part of the documentary America is looking for a top model. Dad was already desperate and was just waiting for Livy to fall asleep. At 10 o'clock, I was so tired that I had to go to sleep too. The third chapter. The week went by very quickly. I added new posts every day and already had almost 50 followers. 3 people even contacted me asking if I could advise them. One wrote to me asking if I could give her advice on how to learn to say no. The other 2 had a problem with friends. One wrote that how can I find out if he is the right one and if she can trust him. Another had a problem with bullying. It was nice to help people because everyone needs help sometimes. A lot of people also wrote to me that I have a very nice page, which also pleased me. When I got out of bed at 9 o'clock, Livy made me breakfast. It was nice of her, unexpected. For a moment, I thought she wanted something again. We had French toast with strawberries while my parents were at the store. I already managed to brag about my idea to Livy on Instagram and she approved it. We talked about it for a while and then we each went to our rooms. I had so many thoughts and quotes in my head that I didn't know what to do. One read, lying. It's just a way to avoid the painful truth. The quotes were usually about my past, Adam. I just need to get it out of my head. I need to forget about him even if it's not easy. In the next week, I got new followers and there were already 105 of them in total. I know it's not much, but I'm happy for every single one. I'm glad they like my posts and are happy with my account. People also started sharing my posts and that made me very happy because more people saw it. Many people have written to me that once they read my posts, they realized that they are not alone in the same situation. I supported them when they needed advice. I was watching various videos on Instagram and then I got a message. Hello, I'm Nika and I really like your posts. I would need help. She wrote. She looked nice, so I wrote her back. Hi. I will be happy to help if I know. I have a problem. People make fun of me for the way I look. Could you help me, please? I don't trust myself at all and I don't know what to do. She finished the sentence sadly. I saw a lot of human problems. A few people wrote to me about them, and Nika was one of them. I asked her why they were laughing at her. She wrote to me that it was because of her weight. It is said that she suffered from a serious illness as a child. When she recovered from it, she gained weight again in a few years. We wrote to each other for a long time. A really long time, until lunch, when I found out what she had to go through. She is 17 years old, which is about the same as me. I wrote her some good advice. Nika. My name is Rebecca. Call me Becky if you want, and I'm glad you got in touch. You have a hard life, and you are a very brave girl who should be proud of yourself. People take their looks very seriously and like to make fun of others who don't look as good as they do. Don't take their words to heart. They don't know what you had to go through and what you had to lose. Cough on them, because if your friends laugh at you, then open the door for them to leave your life. True friends would never try to hurt you. Trust me. And if you need help with anything else, feel free to write to me. I'm available, smiley face. She thanked me. I smiled. Inside, I was happy that I helped a person in need, that my account made sense, and that I finally found a place where I belong, a place where I can be myself. After about 2 weeks of writing with Nika, we came to the news that she lives in Zelina. I haven't told anyone my age or where I live. I don't know who is on the other side of the screen, if it's Nika or some god. I reached the first 500 followers and Livy was thrilled with me. In the meantime, my parents and I went to see my little 2-year-old cousin in Lithuania. On the way, we stopped again at the swing. Next, we went for a walk in the Gator Valley, where Livy sprained her ankle on an electric scooter. Now she is sitting at home and still muttering how it hurts. Our last trip was to the mall. Daddy stayed at home with Livy. He does not like shopping. My mother took me to shopping mall in Zelina to get some new things for school in Bratislava. As I was picking up my clothes, I bumped into someone. A girl with bronze hair about below her shoulder blades climbed out of the cabin. It had a nice smile and reminded me of someone. At first I couldn't remember who, but eventually I found out that it was Nika. I recognized her from her profile picture on Instagram. She looked the same, exactly. There were two options in my head. Either I'll go there and ask if it's her, or the other one, I'll stay here and no one will find out that I'm the one from the internet. I chose the first option. Hello. Phew, that's what I started. Hello? She greeted me. Well, how to start? I'm Becky. Are you Nika? I couldn't do anything more. I haven't met someone new in a long time. Bax? Like her, Becky. She rolled her eyes at me. Yes, it's me. Nice to meet you. Me too. How did you meet me? Do you live in Zelina too? She bombarded me with a lot of questions. I answered question number 1 as follows, according to the profile picture. You looked a lot like me. And the questions continued. Mom went shopping for local groceries, so we talked for an hour and a half in a cafe. Well, Nika spoke earlier. I won't say much. I found her to be great as a person and friend. We exchanged numbers so we could meet more often. After our conversation, I concluded that the reason why people laughed at her was because they envied her. They envied her that she sees the world as it could be and not as it is. That she is always smiling, even if her life was not easy, that she finds a piece of good in every bad moment. Yes, they envy her all this. Please, you who are reading this too, enjoy life like Nika. The 4th chapter. Nika and I have met many times because the summer holidays have finally arrived. I showed her my favorite places in Monastery under the castle. Then I also showed her Blatness Castle, where she had never been before, and told her my favorite legend. Later, I showed her a secret place in Lyatavska Svina, my swing, where we had a picnic. We have the same favorite genre of books, so she recommended some books to me and I recommended some to her. And today? Today we sat again in the meadow by my swing in our village. Do you think the Brontes were in a relationship with some handsome guy when they wrote such perfect romance books? She asked me when I finished Wuthering Heights, and she finished Jannar. Yes, I think so. Or maybe they liked some handsome guy. After all, they had to draw inspiration from somewhere. I thought to myself. I think so too. They must have liked someone to write such perfections. In short, Nika loves books. She literally devours them, and I think even more than I do. When she finished talking, we both picked up our tattered copies of Anna Karenina. I read it when I was 12 and I still love it. Nika agreed with me, and so she also read it for the millionth time. After 2 hours, when we were about halfway through the book, I closed it and put it back in my backpack. It was 3 o'clock, time for training. With Nika, I started regular training at the Zelina Fitness Center. I will improve my figure and fitness a little and help Nike fulfill its dream. In the gym, we changed in the changing rooms and went to exercise. First, we did an easy run on the treadmill and then exercises with dumbbells. She rode her bike while I practiced yoga in the back room. I always calm down with her. Exercising with Nika is great. She always says something funny. Whenever she doesn't succeed in an exercise, she tries it again, and whenever I fail, she supports me again. I was looking for a true friend and I found her. I may not show how much I care about her, but she knows it anyway. After practice, I drove her home and greeted her younger brother. He is 3 years younger than Livy. You may have just wondered how my account turned out. I already have over 1,000 followers. In total, I helped over 100 people and I met the best friend in the world. I thought everything was perfect, but one message changed everything. That evening I came home, as usual after training with Nika. I had a smoothie with raspberries, kiwi, and pineapple. Then, as usual, I spent a few minutes cleaning my perfectly bombed-out room. Not even after a few minutes, I was more than 100% tired, so I laid down on the bed. I pulled out my phone and opened my account. I added a question to the story. What is your biggest fear? I like to ask interesting questions. Whoever wants to respond, whoever doesn't want to, won't respond. After about 10 minutes, an unusual answer came to me, love. I was sorry that something hurt a person so much that he would write this. So I asked the person why love? He didn't answer me. Well, not right away. After another 10 long minutes, he wrote back, "When someone breaks your heart, it will be very difficult to fall in love again." It changed to my fear. What he wrote was also my case. I closed myself off from the world because of Adam. The thoughts of my past with him are like a shadow, dark and still haunting me. Thinking about the past always brings tears, but I've gotten used to it. But then the person wrote back, "And yours?" I didn't know what to write about it. It was a casual conversation. I didn't have to answer it, but I wanted to. It was like talking to Nika, honest, truthful, like I knew the person wasn't lying to me. Pain, that's my fear. That I will feel the same again as before. "I'm sorry you experienced pain. And by the way, you have beautiful quotes. I enjoy reading them," he wrote. So it's him. Somewhere in my head there was a voice telling me to be careful. Thanks. I appreciate it. I'm sorry, but I have to go now. I don't know what he wrote after that. I dropped my phone next to me, and my head had a million reasons to think too much. In the back of my mind, I hoped he wasn't evil, but I was still a little worried. I shouldn't have written to him at all. What the hell was on my mind? I'm here for people to write to me on their own, and not for me to write back to other guys. What's wrong with you, Rebecca? I think I would have panicked like this for a good while, but thank God my phone rang and interrupted me. It was my mother. "Are you okay? You finally picked up on me. Come and open the door for us." I. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't hear the bell. No idea. I was probably so absorbed in the unknown that I didn't register the arrival of my parents and Livy. I blinked and went down the creaking stairs. It was raining outside. The rain drummed on the hood of the car from which Livy and her friend Saskia got out. They were at the cinema watching some new movie, and their parents were at their favorite restaurant, Na Bi, a small Vietnamese restaurant in the center of Martin. "Hello." I greeted myself confusedly. Ours informed me that Saskia would be sleeping here and whether she and Livy could rent my room for one night. I agreed, because Livy's room has access to the balcony, so I will sleep there tonight. After dinner, I went for a walk on my swing. Last week, I brought here LED lights that charge during the light and light up at night. They made the atmosphere there more pleasant. As I was swinging, I wondered who the stranger was. The 5th chapter. Let me tell you, for the fact that it's the end of July, it's pouring like a blizzard. From this rainy start to the week, I would have expected a little change in the form of hot summer sun. My car is being repaired, so I have to take the bus. Great. The bus was late and I didn't have an umbrella. Nika is supposed to be waiting for me in front of the cafe at 1 o'clock and I absolutely can't make it. Is this even possible? The bus is already 11 minutes late. When I finally got on, the driver gave me a nasty look because of my soaked clothes. He looked so terrible that I thought he was going to tell me to stand the whole way, just to be sure not to wet his seat. Fortunately, he didn't tell me anything. I picked up my cell phone and said I was going to call Nike so she wouldn't go so early because I couldn't make it, but then I got a message. Hello. Am I not disturbing you? I do not. What's going on? Shall I give you some advice? I just wanted to ask how you are. You haven't added anything for a long time, so I better ask if you're okay. Me, yes, I am, and you? I forgot to mention one thing. Yes, you're right, I was texting with that stranger again. It was an easy conversation. He asked where I get the inspiration for those. I quote, beautiful quotes as he said. He is attentive, that must be acknowledged. He uses more adjectives and synonyms than anyone else I know. I answered that from the past. And he also has a page with quotes called Amore_Nebs. I have no idea what that means. During our conversation on the bus, he replied that he was doing quite well. I didn't know what was wrong with me, but I knew 100% that when I texted him, it was me, but a slightly different me. As if by herself, and that didn't happen to me that often. The bus dropped me off where I needed to be. The cafe in the mall is great. They have amazing tiramisu. Nika has also changed in appearance and changed her perspective on things. She was grateful to me for enduring the long training sessions with her, but they helped her feel relaxed, and that's the main thing. "What are you thinking about?" she asked me after our long pause. How should I answer her when I don't know what's wrong with me? Well, so it started with one message. And so I told her my whole story with that strange guy. Wow, I really wouldn't have expected this reaction. Like Livy, she also tried to get me to stop doing it because it's dangerous. I know. I probably shouldn't have sent him that message at all, but now I regret it, I said. Like a good friend, she stood by me because after a while she found out that she wouldn't talk to me, so she gave up. She told me that if something happens, that she warned me, but I'm stubborn, I won't listen easily. Next, we talked about guys. We told each other the types we would like. We both agreed that we don't like guys with red hair. Nika would be happy for some nice, cute, and funny guy. As always, I didn't say much. I listened to Nika well, but when she asked me what kind of guy I was, I got a little nervous. The last time I was so wrong about a guy that I really didn't want to take apart my ideal friend. But if I really had to think about someone who would be my type, it's not so much about looks as it is about character. I would need someone to support me, calm me down when I'm sad, hug me, make me laugh. I just need someone who will really love me after all that. I'm sorry I even asked about it, she apologized to me. Please don't do any of that. It's all right. You didn't know, I said with a sincere smile. Nika was understanding and we never returned to that topic. We went for a walk in the afternoon. We walked all the way to the library, where I borrowed more literature to read. Nika has taken some professional paper that they have to read for the next school year. As we walked down the stone stairs, I had to tell her that we were moving to Bratislava at the end of August. I knew she would be sad, but I'd rather tell her now than at the end of the holidays. Don't worry, Nikas, we still have less than 2 months. And besides, I have my own car, I can come to see you even every weekend, I reassured her. She nodded, but her face showed an uneasy expression. Apparently, she too has found a real good and reliable friend, and now our paths are about to diverge. Of course, I was also sorry, but we have to move. And why are you moving? She suddenly said. Dad was transferred to a newly built company, and Mom was already here, even so she wasn't satisfied with her job. Livy, she's just happy to move. She's not having an easy time at school. And I actually don't have any problem. I'd rather stay here, I explained to her. She understood, and I'm so glad. I agreed with my parents that Nika will sleep with us today. The last time I had a friend at my sleepover was when I was about 8 or 9 years old. Misery, huh? Since then, I didn't invite anyone to our home. I didn't have anyone. When we arrived home, pizza was waiting for us on the table. Mom didn't know what to do, so she kept jumping us. I have a big soft carpet in my room with a good view of the wall-mounted TV, so we lay there. After about an hour and a half of watching Ghost with Patrick Swayze, I got a beep from Instagram. Nika just raised her eyebrows and handed me the phone. The 6th chapter. Jacob. It wouldn't be a bad day if everything didn't remind me of Karen. The holidays dragged on. I didn't feel like doing anything. Patrick also called me out, but I didn't want to. Karen kept writing to me that she was apologizing to me, that she didn't want to, and so on, but I was running out of patience. When I finally said yes to a meeting with the adamant Patrick today, he did nothing but try to lift my spirits. Forget about her. She wasn't worth it to you. You will find another. I guess he was right. Maybe, I concluded. What maybe? I'll forget about her, I said and bowed my head. Have you ever had a person with you that you cared about even if they didn't treat you well? Was she nice to you, even if only on the outside, but you liked her and hoped she would change? I had Karen. I wanted to show her that she doesn't have to pretend with me, that it doesn't matter who she isn't, but who she is. I didn't succeed. Once there is evil in a person, that evil never goes away. As I was thinking about my past, I forgot to live in the present. So are you going to get in or not? said the gentleman in the taxi, whom I called after the meeting with Patrick, impatiently. It's hard at university, especially my field. I chose Comenius University with a major in Slovak language and literature, focusing mainly on poetry. I know it's unusual, but life has given me so many possibilities and topics for poems that I can't choose which one is better. I write about anything, anytime, anywhere. I usually write what I have experienced, be it joy, pain, or love. A lot of times my poems are about honesty, because I think that's a very important quality. My friends, such as Merrick, a 2-meter-tall guy with a sense of humor, tell me that my poetry is good. He told me the other day, "You're such a romantic that I'm surprised babies don't fall at your feet." I just laughed at that. When he told me, it was only a few days after he broke up with Kai, and actually his belief in love had gone with her. I have been on Instagram for a while because I wanted to share my poems with the world and show them. I'm not about the number of followers, I'm more about people reading my poetry, liking it, and making them happier. I liked the name she gave, Unknown with a Name. It described her because she was still unknown to me. Her thoughts were worth their weight in gold. They were deep, and some were full of sadness. Some were perhaps written in tears, perhaps with a smile. There was truth, sincerity, and goodness in them. I have yet to meet a person who has something like this in him. People who write something so beautiful must have received many blows from life and must have experienced many pains. I didn't know if she could even be real. I knew nothing about her. Name, age, hobbies, simply nothing, although I really wanted to. Well, let's go back to reality, to the most beautiful possible reality that could come across to me. I hadn't even been in the taxi for 10 minutes, and already thoughts about her were flying through my head. Maybe I just imagined that perfect girl. If she was real, she couldn't be made for me, right? For a perfect being like her, there has to be someone better than me. She deserves it. I had nothing to do, so I read her new story that she posted on Instagram. There was also a question in it. What is your biggest fear? I clicked in the white box and entered the answer, love. Who would be afraid of love, right? Well, apparently me. I'm not as much of a fighter as I look. Girls think that guys don't have feelings, but they're wrong. A guy has many times more than a girl. He's just ashamed to admit it. I'm not afraid of love as such. I'm afraid of falling in love again, confessing my feelings to someone again, because I'm afraid he'll use it against me at some point. I'm also afraid that if I got back together with one of those girls, I'd either end up like a toy or we'd work out at first, and then I'd end up as a father, divorced and devastated by my mother's departure. I looked out the window into the rainy evening. Drops were running down the window glass and street lamps were shining outside. It was quite dark outside, but my phone suddenly turned on in the car. She wrote to me, of her own accord. I knew that the unknown woman was mysterious, but I had no idea that she would decide to write to me on her own. I unlocked my phone and read her message. She wrote to me that why am I afraid of love? I explained it to her. Somehow I suspected that she understood me. I asked her what her biggest fear was. She said pain. I froze, my heart stopped for a moment, and my thoughts shattered into 300,000 pieces in my head. Pain? How much did she have to suffer to say this? What must have hurt her so much that she was afraid of experiencing pain again? I wanted so badly to ask her what happened to her, but I didn't have the courage. So I quickly pushed that thought away. After that, she didn't hear from me again. A few days later, I wanted to know some information about her again. I wanted to get to know her, but I was afraid that every step I took would be wrong. I did not know this feeling. It was interesting, as if a little strange, but I liked it. I was distraught with the feeling of sudden excitement. I had never wanted to write to anyone as badly as I did now. What if he scares me? I don't want to be intrusive, and I don't want her to think that I'm some guy who wants to extract information from her. I just wanted to get to know her, maybe make friends. I don't know what it was, but I want to get to know her. I've never wanted it as much as I do now. I just wrote her a simple message. Hello. Am I disturbing you? I just want to ask, Where do you get the inspiration for your work? It has a certain depth and truth to it. After about half an hour, she finally spoke. Hi. No, you are not disturbing me. Well, I draw my work from my past. There is a lot of inspiration there. I thought so. He is a strong person. It can be seen. He has a different writing style than anyone I know. She is not dreaming. Rather, she lives in reality. I liked her personality even though we never met and maybe never will. I looked out of the window for a while and began to wonder what the mysterious girl's name was. The 7th chapter. Another week passed. I enjoyed my vacation. I went out with friends a few times. I also went to the gym. It's a nice break to clear my thoughts, and then I was locked at home with pen and paper in hand. I tried to surprise her with something small but nice, and I thought of poetry. We texted about 3 times this week. It was just something like, "Hi, how are you?" Nothing special, believe me. However, today's news changed our type of conversation. It was around 10 in the morning. I was making breakfast. A simple baguette with cheese and ham. In the afternoon, I had planned to go to another training session at the gym. I turned on the TV, even though there was nothing on it. When I finished eating, I received an unexpected message. Hi. I've been wondering what your username means for a long time, but I haven't come up with anything. What does it mean? If I may ask. I smiled into the phone. I began to break down the message. Of course you can. Nebis is Spanish for sky, and anime is Italian for soul, meaning heavenly soul. That's a beautiful idea. The name describes you, because the poetry you write here is really like from a heavenly soul. I smiled even more. She seems to be a romantic when she wrote me this magical sentence. Can someone so nice even be real? One question was hanging on my tongue, but I was afraid of her reaction. I don't want to startle her. But I risked it. May I know your name? Yes, my name is Rebecca. You have a strange name, unusual, but I like it. I answered. I really liked her name. I finally knew the answer to that mystery. For me, however, it will not be just Rebecca. It will be the mysterious Rebecca, because she is full of mysteries, still unexplained. And you? What is your name? She asked me after a few minutes. She had such a beautiful name that mine was completely ordinary to her. I'm just an ordinary Jacob. I'm glad. Ordinary Jacob, winky face. Me too, Rebecca. I finally knew her name. It was a lottery win for me. She said she had to go. Maybe she had to, maybe not. You have to be careful. I would also be cautious nowadays. The world has changed. So not the world, but people. Having lunch with Patrick, my other good friend, was strange because I had nothing else on my mind except Rebecca. I kept playing her name over and over in my head, over and then over again. Patrick was confused by my strange behavior. Are you okay? He asked me after about a 3-minute pause when I didn't say anything. Yes and no, I answered suddenly. My thoughts gave me a million words to describe Rebecca, but none were enough. And so the words slowly started pouring out of me. Patrick grimaced at me. He knew that I only talk like that when I'm in love. And so he asked me, what are the chances that you will meet her? That you will actually see her? Somewhere in the corner of my soul, I really want it. I want to get to know her better, and not just through the news, I said. I can talk to Patrick better than any other friend of mine. He was more receptive because ever since he met Victoria, his girlfriend, he is on good terms. Victoria is a nice girl, made for Patrick. They understand each other. And how do I know Patrick? From school, because he also studies literature. We study the same field. After an hour-long conversation, we had a meeting with a few other guys. I would have sat in the restaurant even longer, but I wanted to go home already, so that was just an excuse. The real reason was that I wanted to send my mystery lady a present. I wrote it last night. She inspired me. She actually inspires all my new poems. I came home and took off my leather jacket. I hung her on the chair and went to get some paper so I could transcribe it into a report. But first I greeted her politely. Hi. I have a surprise for you. The light from your soul brings me out of the darkness. From fear, from darkness, or from fog. You chose the right path. And you showed the world that you are not alone. That you're not the only one here. What she got wrong about people. That you are not alone here. And that the truth was not revealed. You showed the world what you're made of. You showed them how your heart laughs. You show them your true face. Even if they don't think so. Show them the girl, which never gives up. I checked the spelling and submitted it. She wasn't active on Instagram right away. I had to wait a while first. I nervously started tapping my foot on the floor when suddenly she read my message. She didn't write me back right away. I waited and waited. After 2 minutes, it turned out that he was writing a message. A few more minutes passed and she sent me a text. Is that for me? Started. Did you make that up? If so, it's really beautiful. Who is it about? It's about you. I wanted to write, but I didn't want to scare her with my attribute that it belongs to me, so I wrote back. It's about you. You told me that you draw your inspiration from the past, and I know that every past holds a little grudge. I'm sorry you were wronged or hurt. If you need anything, I'm here. She was apparently pleased with my message. She wrote to me thanking me very much. I was happy, but I would have been more if I could have seen her expression when she read it. Would she really like my poem, or was she just pretending because it was rude for her to say otherwise? I did not know the answer to this question. Maybe I'll find out later. The 8th chapter. Rebecca. I came home late. First I went shopping, then to see a present for Livy, and now I'm happy to be alive. I lay down tiredly on the soft bed with a notebook in my hand, because something great came to mind again. This time I didn't write about myself, but about others. About people who don't appreciate what they have. They don't enjoy the given moment, and so I thought of this. We enjoy the beauty of the moment only when the moment is over. I thought it was a nice quote, so I published it. When I checked to see if anyone had texted me, he called me. I waited a long time for him to speak again. I didn't want to write to him first. I was afraid I was annoying. And besides, I didn't know him at all, but the more we wrote, the more I felt like I knew him. My mother told me that I should stop it. I don't know who is on the other side of the screen, but I have heard this sentence many times. But I know how to take care of myself. And my mother knows it well. One part of me wanted to stop, but the other wanted to know more about him. I opened our conversation and a long message flashed at me. It looked like a poem. Yes, I know about Jacob that he writes poetry, but I have never seen such a long, beautiful poem on his account. I read it. It was really beautiful. Tears welled up in my eyes and I told myself that this simply couldn't be written for me. He must have gotten the conversation wrong and wanted to send it to his girlfriend, even though I hoped she didn't have one, a friend, or anyone else, but not me. I didn't know what to write. He has such a perfect talent that I can just throw away my quotes. They are nothing compared to his work and poems. I read it again. I just couldn't take my eyes off it. I asked him who it was for. He replied that it was for me. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would jump out of my chest. That was the best thing anyone ever said to me. For the first time in my life, I received a poem from someone. She was really like me. At that moment, I had so many questions for him that I wanted to know the answer to all of them. I wanted to ask him how old he is, where he lives, his favorite places, where he goes to school, possibly to work, and so on. But to be honest, I didn't know how he would react and whether he wouldn't start asking me questions too. I was afraid that he would use everything he knew about me against me. One part of me told me that he is not bad. He can't be. I don't want him to be bad. I couldn't help it and I asked him one question. I knew that I would either screw it up or he would start questioning me. Anyone who would start pulling information from me, like where I live, would end up among the blocked users. Well, I didn't want him to end up there either. The question I asked him was written as follows. And can I ask you something? Are you studying or working? She seemed fine to me because if she says she's studying, that means she's around my age. Well, if he says he's working, he'll definitely be a few years older, and then I'd probably start to worry a little. I know that there may not be any deviation right away, but I don't trust people very much anymore. I'm not the type of girl who would take pictures on Instagram or Facebook or write messages with anyone. I already wanted to delete the message because I started to regret it, but it's a good thing that I didn't because he wrote to me that he was studying. So, as I already mentioned, this means that Jacob is around the age of 16 to 25, theoretically. As is my habit, I threw my phone on the edge of my bed. And again, I had reasons to think. Who is he anyway? Where does she live? Is it possible that we will ever meet? What does he look like? What does he think of me? If we ever met, would he like me? After the last question, I realized one important thing, that I probably fell in love with an unknown stranger from the internet. We wrote to each other for a while. He also asked me if I was studying, and I said yes. I really wanted to ask how old he was, but there were already too many questions for today. I went to immerse myself in the land of dreams. I dreamed about him. I imagined him tall, about 1.85 meters, with black hair, chocolate brown eyes, and a beautiful, irresistible smile. There was nothing more in the dream than me holding him tightly around my chest. I was tiny with him. I'm barely 6 feet tall, so I couldn't reach higher than his chest. I didn't want to wake up from that dream. I wasn't ready for it. I still just wanted to hug him, nothing more than that. Livy needed to take Vrucky to the train station early in the morning. They had a holiday meeting there with the class. I had my alarm set for 3 in the morning because we had to be in Vrucky at 4. I didn't notice Livy on the way because my head was full of my dream. And actually, I didn't even have to perceive anything. Livy was half asleep. There were already enough classmates at the station and their train was just arriving. I said goodbye to her and went back to the car. Nothing was open anywhere except the gas station where they have perfect croissants. The lady was quite willing about the fact that it was 5:30 in the morning. It started to get brighter, and the morning rays of the sun slowly started to warm me through the car window. As I was driving, I was thinking about my dream again. Will it ever be real? I doubt it, because if Jacob is as perfect as in my imagination, he definitely has a girlfriend. But it didn't make sense to me that if he had someone, why would he send me a poem? It didn't go through my head, so I just looked at the road and didn't notice anything, only the morning nature. The 9th chapter. Jacob. After my message with the poem, she asked me if I was studying. I answered yes. And I found out that she is also studying. I was pleased with this unexpected news. It was like another plus for me. I'm 19, which meant she would be around my age. Well, I didn't want to ask her age. I don't want her boyfriend, because he definitely has such a great girl, to list me so that I stop bothering his girlfriend. If he has one, I envy him. And I envy him a lot. I hope he cares for her, loves her, and protects her, because to have a treasure like Rebecca, I sure would. As I was thinking, a poem came to mind. There are times when I don't know what to do. The past, thoughts, how to break them. Sincere smiles and love have gone by the wayside, and lies with pain seem to be found. People wait, do nothing. They think bad times will change. They are wrong. For goodness sake, do something first. Only then wait for your desires longingly. People laughed at people falling, but they did not realize that they themselves failed in doing so. Pravda left, but she left behind some nice moments. She left me here with pain, sadness. She left me here to fend for myself. I usually think of these sad poems when I think of bad things that have happened to me. Well, the more I think about Rebecca, the less those bad memories are somehow. When I write with her, it's like being somewhere in another world. I will put all the past behind me and live only in the present. If I met her, I would look into her eyes and look for connections in them. Connections between my past and hers. I don't know what or who hurt her, but I guarantee that if a person hurt her, I wouldn't hold back. How could someone be so inhuman as to hurt her so much, even if only verbally, to make her fear pain? If I could find a connection in our pasts in her eyes, I would start looking for a hint of love. Could she love someone again? Trust someone again? Would she be able to return the love, or has she been let down so much that she can't? Could she love me? Someone who would never hurt her and never let others do it? I really wanted it, but I knew that the chance of us meeting, let alone the possibility of her loving me, was zero. A few more days passed and she called me only once of her own accord. I was sorry that only once, but if she has a boyfriend, I completely understand. She doesn't have time for me. It was Sunday, a calm and peaceful day that I spent without any problems. I was on the phone one afternoon with my brother when he announced that he was getting married in 2 months. I was happy with this news, at least my brother is happy. Then I went for a walk around the Danube. There were many people outside. They looked happy that it was finally sunny. The sun was burning my skin, so I went to cool off in the shade. Even though I was alone, I enjoyed the walk. Unfortunately, Patrick couldn't make it today. They went somewhere with Vicky. When I remembered them, my thoughts again flew to Rebecca. What is he doing? I looked around. Couples, both human and animal, could be seen everywhere. The swans on the river looked so in love that I missed someone here. People looked at each other with loving eyes and held hands. I wanted to feel that way too, so I took out a pen and paper and started writing. About her again. About that lady full of mysteries. I won't tell you the poem this time, it's personal. Please don't be angry with me for not telling you yet, but if I meet her, I will give her the poem in person, and only then will you know what I wrote to her. Satisfied with a new poem for her, I walked back home, but I stopped at a flower shop before. Another great hobby of mine is photography. I carry my camera in a leather bag for special shots. I went to buy a rose. When I bought it, I wished I could give it to someone instead of needing it for a few photos. From the flower shop, I went a little closer to the water. I placed the rose on the pebbles by the water and took out my camera. The picture showed the Danube, water, which symbolizes wisdom, then a stone, which symbolizes strength and security, and finally a rose, as a symbol of love. The photo turned out well, so I had it developed right away. The elderly gentleman asked me if I took the picture. I nodded and he smiled. I walked home with a photo and a rose in my hand. I don't live far, but I still had to drive a bit. When I returned home satisfied, I had dinner, went to sit in the living room and watched TV, and then went to bed tired. It was sometime after midnight when I couldn't sleep. I was very worried by the news that came to me. The 10th chapter. Rebecca. In the morning, I repeated my daily routine as always. I brushed my teeth, combed my hair, jumped back into bed for a few minutes, changed my clothes, went to wake Livy up and prepare breakfast, eat, and that was about it. Today, however, I didn't have to wake Livy up because she woke me up. It was 10 o'clock when she came to knock on my door. I didn't sleep at night because the events of Friday were repeating themselves in the evening and I had to think about it. My dad told me to uninstall Instagram because it's dangerous. My mom has the same opinion and told me not to retweet that guy or any other man or woman. Nobody understood me because if I uninstall Instagram, I will also lose my only contact with Jacob. I was waging a war with thoughts in my head. On the one hand, I am already an adult, so my thoughts coincided with my parents. That is, about a quarter were identical to my parents. 3/4 of my thoughts were winning so far, because at their head was a soldier with the name, "You will not leave Instagram because you will lose Jacob." Even though I knew very well that this guy wouldn't rest even on Saturday, I stayed on Instagram. On Sunday morning, that is today, my brave soldier was losing. His soldiers joined the side of the parents, and I was really nervous about the whole thing. And as for the guy, I would be very happy if he didn't text me more than once. Well, exactly as I thought, again, when I was lying on the bed, I received another message from that Peter. I didn't write him back, I just wanted to know what he was writing again. He introduced himself to me early Friday evening. He told me that his name is Peter, he is 28 years old and lives in Poprad. I didn't care. I let it go, but 2 hours later he wasn't so friendly. He started asking me various things like my name, my hobbies, favorite activities, age, and type of music. I wrote to him that my name is Rebecca. He can't misuse the fact that he knows my name. He was persistent and wanted to know my age. I didn't tell him that. I didn't know who he was, and I won't say anything personal to strangers. However, that Peter did not give up so quickly. He told me he knew me, my family, and that's how it all started. He also wrote to me on Saturday. I haven't written anything back to him. But this morning, I received 30 more unread messages. I didn't know what to do, so I went to see my mother again. I'm telling you for the 100th time. Uninstall that dangerous app. There are a million people like him. I don't know his name. You're not going to tell him anything about yourself anymore. Mom shouted, but only because she's worried about me. I understand her. I, being a mother, am also afraid for my daughter. But I didn't want to hear what she said. Mom, I just told him. What did you say to him? She shouted even more. Mom, calm down. Just your name, no age or anything like that. I just want to hear from you. What should I do? Uninstall that Instagram. This is exactly what I didn't want to hear. Only on Instagram I am finally myself and happy. But you don't understand. And I stomped like a 3-year-old child upstairs to my sister's room. I flung open the door angrily and she gave me an angry look. Didn't I tell you to knock? She said angrily. Liv, please listen to me. I need help. And so I told her the whole story about that horrible man. The reaction was the same as my mother's. He was going to beat me. Does nobody really understand me? Does anyone really care that if I lose Instagram, I lose Jacob? Yes, no one cared, because no one knew about Jacob except Nika. Nika, she will understand me. I quickly went to my room for the phone. We agreed to meet at 11:30 near the shopping mall. I immediately left the house because there will be half-hourly queues as always under Strekno. I was sitting in a sushi restaurant. We agreed to have lunch right away. She arrived about 5 minutes past 11. I told her everything. She had a strange look. Well, look, if you delete that app from your life, you'll also delete Jacob, and you don't want that, is that right? Of course, Nikki. Come on, tell me what else to do. You really didn't think of that? Block him right now. So that was my idea that I didn't think of earlier. I took my cell phone out of my bag and found Peter's account on Instagram. I clicked block and it was done. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I hugged Nika. Well, it's settled. I still have contact with Jacob and that Peter can't find me anymore. Nikki and I arranged another meeting on Tuesday at the same time at the same place. I drove her home one afternoon because she and her family went to Banska Styavnica for the night to see a family member. I went back home happy and full of energy. I would have been home in about 3/4 of an hour, but there was a car accident near Strekno, so I was stuck there for 2 hours until the ambulance arrived for the injured and the policeman guarded the passage of road traffic. I came home at 6 o'clock. I went to the pizzeria in Vrutki for a pizza. Mom calmed down and so did Dad and Livy when I told them that the guy wouldn't write to me anymore, but the opposite was true. When I went to sleep it was about 10 at night. I was about to turn off my mobile phone, but I received a message from an unknown user. Why did you block me, Rebecca? Did I do something wrong? And in that I was really scared. He has created another account through which he can contact me. I politely asked him not to contact me again, but he told me that if I blocked him again, he would find me. Even though I knew that he didn't have any information about me, residence, city in which I live, and not even a street, I was scared. My hands started shaking and my phone fell to the floor. I was afraid that the bang wouldn't forget the parents. I didn't want any more problems, and I preferred to pick him up right away. I laid down in bed and started thinking. I couldn't sleep, so I looked at my watch. It was 1:30 in the morning. Thoughts consumed me and I became afraid. I didn't know what to do, and the only one who could help me was Jacob. The 11th chapter. Jacob. I just got a message from Rebecca. I was confused why he was texting me so late. I rubbed my eyes with my finger because I couldn't see the glowing screen. The news sounded serious. But I understood its seriousness only when she told me everything. Hello, Jacob. Maybe you won't read it until the morning, but I need to talk urgently, and you are the only one who can help me and understand me. I was totally confused. What seriously had to happen to her to write to me at 1:30 in the morning? I didn't hesitate and immediately wrote her back. Rebecca, are you okay? Don't worry, whatever it is, I'll help you. I wanted to make her feel confident that no matter what happens to her, I'm here with her. Jacob, thank God you are online. How do I actually start? It's complicated, so I'll try it from the beginning. On Friday, I received a message from a guy. His name said to be Peter. He told me that he is 28 years old and lives somewhere near Poprad. He started asking me various information such as my name, how old I am, etc. I thought he needed help with something, so I introduced myself to him. In the end, I found out that he didn't want any help, that he just wanted to know information about me. I told my parents everything, but they told me to uninstall Instagram, and I didn't want to hear that. One of my girlfriends told me to block him, delete him, or whatever, just so he can't contact me anymore. I blocked him, and it really worked, until 10 in the evening when he wrote me another message. He wrote to me in it that I should not dare to block him or report him to someone. He told me that he would find me personally, that he knew where I live, and so on. Oh God, I really don't know what to do. I'm afraid, Jacob. It was like being slapped. I wanted to get married and make out with that horrible guy. How can someone be so inhuman and want to hurt Rebecca? I was so turned on. But now Rebecca mattered most to me, and I longed to take her in my arms and tell her that she was safe with me. I couldn't do it, but I still tried to help her as much as I could. I wrote her what I had to, even though it was the last thing I wanted. Rebecca, it would probably be best if you uninstalled Instagram. He will no longer have a way to contact you. No, Jacob, I really can't. Why? He could never contact you again. I wrote this with a terrible feeling. I knew that if she uninstalled this app, one would lose contact with her, but now I didn't care. The main thing was that this guy wouldn't contact her anymore. Jacob, this is finally the place where I can be myself. I can't leave him. It finally makes me happy. I already understood her. She is finally happy on Instagram. She can be herself here, write her thoughts and feelings here. She didn't want to leave this paradise. The anger came again so suddenly. Only now have all those questions completely filled my head. What does this guy want? What the hell is he trying to do? Anger rising even though I knew I couldn't do anything at all. The questions continued. Would he still write to her? What will he want to get from her? How far will it go before he stops enjoying this so far less harmful game and starts pushing it? How long will Rebecca last? How can I help her? What can I do if I don't know what, where, and how? The whole thing made my head explode. Rebecca wrote to me about her soul, horrified by the whole situation. My thoughts gradually began to engulf me. I tried to calm Rebecca, but the more I tried to calm her down, the more worried she became. She was afraid it would go too far. I asked her what she had told him about herself. She replied that only her name. I was relieved that only the name. If the guy found out more, who knows how it could turn out. This was the last sentence I wrote to her. Rebecca, get some sleep. Write me tomorrow morning when you wake up. I'll try to write you right away. She didn't read it, and that worried me even more. I asked after about 5 minutes if she was okay, if something happened to her, but she didn't reply. It was 2 o'clock in the morning when I fell asleep with restless thoughts and fear for my Rebecca. I didn't sleep much because already at 8:30 I started to push myself on the soft bed. I woke up with the feeling that what happened at night was just a dream, but the opposite was true. As soon as I changed my clothes and completed my morning routine, around 9 o'clock, Rebecca wrote to me. Good morning. I apologize to you, but I must have fallen asleep while we were texting at night. I was so tired of it. Hi, Rebecca, it's fine. I fell asleep too. Are you better than yesterday? Yes and no. Yes, because he hasn't texted me yet, but that can change quickly, because it's only 9 in the morning, and no, because I can't get his messages out of my head. Jacob, how should I stop them? I thought for a long time. I couldn't come up with anything for a long time until I thought of some useful advice. When I was having problems with my ex, a lot of her sentences stuck in my head. The thoughts were persistent and I kept replaying them over and over, even if I didn't want to. But one piece of advice helped me. I started writing down all my thoughts on paper and wow, it worked. I burned the paper in the fire as a sign that it was in the past. It may seem very strange to some, but it helped me. I also advised my lady in need. She graciously thanked me for the advice. She told me she was going to try it right away, so I left her alone. I was very tired after tonight, so by some strange miracle I fell asleep on the couch. I woke up around noon. It was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I looked at my phone and found more messages from Rebecca. I was very surprised by their content. The 12th chapter. Rebecca. Jacob was online that night. I hoped I wouldn't wake him up so he wouldn't be woken up by his notification sound on. I wrote him the first message. He read it and greeted me politely. He asked me what happened, and so I told him the whole story. It must have taken him by surprise, because in the messages he wrote to me, he sounded somewhat upset. Did that mean he cared about me? I didn't want to say anything to be sure. As we wrote to each other, I found out that he was very understanding about my situation, at least someone. He understood my situation, and that's what I needed. He was very compassionate and tried to help me. We wrote a lot of messages, and the more I told him about the guy, the more I felt that Jacob understood me. I told him about everything, every message, every word, and the more I remembered, the more my face got wet. Tears literally poured down my face and formed patterns on the pillow. Tears constantly wet my face and my eyes were already exhausted. The last thing I saw that night was Jacob's kind message telling me to sleep. I always slept on a wet pillow in the morning. I woke up sometime before 6, but I didn't want to get up yet. I must have fallen asleep because the nearest time I saw on the clock was 9:15. I changed my clothes and went to get something to eat, because I was quite hungry after the long night. I hurried upstairs because I wanted to talk to Jacob. I apologized to him for not writing back and he accepted it very graciously. I was very sleepy, so there must have been a lot of mistakes in my reports. As soon as I wrote to Jacob, he wrote back. I was very happy to see his messages again and the icon that he is online. I was upset because I was afraid that when the guy saw that I was online again, he would text me. He didn't text me because the only messages I got were from my personal secret savior. I knew she was worried about me, but I didn't know how much. I wanted to think about him, but the guy Peter came to my mind again. I asked Jacob if he had any trick to stop thoughts, and he gave me a good one. After that, I didn't dare to write to him anymore. I didn't want to bother him again if he wanted to spend a nice Monday with his girlfriend. The morning went well. Until lunchtime, I was in a bad mood again. It didn't look so bad at first. The guy just greeted me and asked how I was doing. I didn't describe it to him. That's probably clear, but he started to be more aggressive than before. The messages showed that he was aggressive. He wrote them very quickly and also with errors. He really wanted to know my age. I don't know why, because he couldn't care less if I was 18, 20, or 15. I put my phone on the desk in my room and went down the stairs to the kitchen. Mom washed the dishes after lunch and Dad put them on the shelves. Livy rolled lazily from side to side on the couch. She had been complaining since the morning that something was crawling on her, some illness or something similar. Move a little, I asked her when she was sprawled all over the couch. I had my sad, thoughtful expression again, and my mother asked what was wrong with me. She also asked if the guy was still texting me. I said yes, but I was ignoring it. She started making scenes with her father again, so after their emotional and angry exit, I went back to the room. I looked at the messages that came to me and found nothing but Peter's notes. Will you finally write me back? Tell me more about yourself than your name? I want to be your friend. Will we ever meet? How you look? Send me a photo of your face. You have a boyfriend? These were all the messages he was texting me in the last few minutes I was in the kitchen. I sighed, and tears welled up in my eyes. My screen started blurring and my tears started falling on the phone. 1 second, third, and so on. How far the hell does he want to go with these questions, and how long will it take? I wanted to write to Jacob so badly. When I write to him, it's like almost everything is fine, but I was afraid that I would annoy him. I preferred to move from the bed to the floor and rest my head on the edge of the bed. I wiped my tears with my hand so that Livy wouldn't see that I was crying if she wanted to burst into my room in the near future. I received a message from the most expected person at this moment, Jacob. Hi, are you okay? Everything okay? Nothing was wrong. If I lie to those around me, I won't lie to my personal psychologist, right? Hi. No, I'm not. I'm sorry to burden you with this, but you're the only one who understands. He wrote to me again. He wants to see my face, some photos or something. And now he's writing to me again. I'm on my nerves. He really wrote to me again. What is he writing to you? He wants to know if I have a boyfriend and is forcing me to text him. He says that if I don't tell him what he wants, he knows where I live. I'm afraid to write him back, but I'm also afraid not to write him back. He says he can find out where my phone is. He didn't write anything off for a long time. Maybe he was thinking, maybe he had something better to do than talking to me, or maybe he was worried about me. The third option warmed me somehow. After a long pause, I finally learned something. I was thinking, can I ask you something? I know this is probably not a good time to ask, but do you have a boyfriend? It was quite personal information, but somewhere inside I felt that I could trust Jacob. That he is not like Peter, evil, trying to extract information from girls. On the contrary. Jacob is kind, understanding, and sincere. I had no reason not to tell him the truth. I have not. I'm probably asking a stupid question too, but do you have a girlfriend? I have not. Somewhere deep down, I felt that I had a slightly better chance with him again, but I practically didn't know anything about Jacob either, so it went out before it saw the light of day. I got an idea. Write him back. Tell him you have a boyfriend. Okay. She keeps texting me, so I'm going to go with it. All right. I'll wait here for you. A tiny hint of a smile appeared on my face as I read his sentence again. I opened a conversation between Peter and my only message and started typing, "Yes, I have a boyfriend." That was the sentence I sent him. Yes? And what is his name? I hoped he wouldn't ask any further, that we'd be done with it, but he wanted to know a lot more. My hands started to clap again, and I went to write to Jacob that after a while I was at a loss again. He asks me what his name is. How old is he, and does he take care of me? He also wrote to me that he would definitely be a better friend than mine. And then he texted me again to send him some photos of my face. Jacob, please, what should I do? An idea has crossed my mind, but I don't know if you will agree with it. Tell him that I am your friend, that his name is Jacob, and that he is 19 years old. We'll see if this information is enough for the horrible guy. If I don't have another idea, but I wouldn't like to use it. So, my protector is 19. My heart was about to jump out of my chest. I switched to the conversation with Peter and started writing. His name is Jacob and he is 19. Oh yeah. And does he like you? Yes. Really? But I would rather have you if I knew what you look like. Not. Nobody likes me more than Jacob. And you don't lose anything, I'm ugly anyway. Oh yeah. It's okay, my princess. Well, he already overdid this. Is it not enough for him that I finally wrote him back? Does that idiot have to provoke me with nicknames? This is over the line. Don't call me that, I don't like it. Okay, so I'll call you something else, what your Kubo probably calls you, or whatever it is called. You'll be sweet, okay? And I'm not going to change your name. He will probably beat me. What else does he want to afford? I threw my phone on the ground and ran my hand through my hair. So it was boiling inside me. All the nicknames, messages, information about the guy. Only Jacob knew how I felt, how I endured it. I was grateful to him, so I picked up the phone and texted him again. I told him about you. It must have really irritated him because he started calling me nasty nicknames. He's an ass, how can he even afford it? What did he start calling you? Princess and baby. He is so unimaginably annoying and spoils my mood so much. I am already lost. What is the name of his Instagram account? I've run out of nerves. Jacob, no, please, start with it even more. Please, I don't want him to do anything to you. To me? It won't do anything to me. I'm sick of how he lets himself into you. No one should treat a girl like this. Now he found you, but what about later? When he stops having fun with you, he starts writing to someone else. It has to end. Please tell me his name. I will help you. Okay then. Just please, don't let anything happen to you. I was really worried about him because I know what this guy is capable of. I dictated his username to him. He didn't hear from me for a long time. Apparently, he was choosing the right words to stop the fool. My protector protected me even more than before. The 13th chapter. Jacob. After the messages my distress lady wrote me, my fear deepened even more. When she told me that Peter was asking her for a boyfriend, I thought I could help her. Once I found out she didn't have a boyfriend, I was so happy. If she doesn't have a boyfriend, that means she's free, that she can possibly be mine, although I couldn't believe that someone so warm and fragile didn't have someone to protect her. I was willing to do anything, really anything, just to make sure she was safe and that this guy couldn't hurt her anymore. So I thought that she should write to him that I am her boyfriend. I told her how old I was so that the guy would know that he couldn't have sex with her. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw a girl with blonde hair and tearful eyes hugging her knees and sitting somewhere in the room on the floor with her phone next to her, thinking about someone trying to hurt her. It was a terrible sight. I hoped it wasn't true, but I knew it was. Words can hurt. Sometimes we don't realize the weight of the words we let out of our mouths, and then they can hurt the innocent badly. Words don't have the same meaning as they used to, but their weight is still the same and maybe even worse if we tell someone what we didn't want to say. She told me that she wrote to him and that he started contacting her even more. And it totally hit me when she told me that he started calling her nicknames like honey and princess. My God, such dry and used nicknames. If only he could come up with something more creative for her than, for example, mine, mysterious lady, my lady, or anything else, but not a princess. I asked her for his Instagram account. My nerves were on fire. My anger was literally eating away at the right thoughts. I needed to protect her. I had that need and I felt it. It wasn't a bad offer to report him to Instagram, but there weren't enough significant issues reported. She sent me his username and I immediately clicked the message button. I'm going for the good first. I don't want to upset me even more because it would be worse after the bad. Stop bothering my girlfriend. I don't know why you're doing this, but stop it immediately. And you have no right to call her by nicknames like honey or princess. I'm the only one who can address her other than by her name. I advise you to stop because a couple of police officers I know would like to look at the messages you are harassing my girlfriend with. Stop it and don't you dare text other girls. I put all my anger into that message and finally felt relief. I sent a screenshot of this message to Rebecca. I didn't want to send anything she wouldn't know about. She said it was fine. She asked me if the relationship we are playing is just a game for the guy. I answered yes. I didn't want to push her into anything she didn't want, even though I was sorry. I know she doesn't know me, that she has no reason to trust me any more than a stranger who walks past her. I had such a terrible desire to call her, to hear her voice. Well, I didn't have the courage as always. Without courage, people are blind and helpless. There was silence for a long time. So I asked her if he had written her anything new. She told me no, that it must have taken some time. I hoped that was true, but I honestly didn't believe that he would stop because of one message. I asked her how her day was, what nice experience she had. Not much today. My sister is obviously sick and our family is going to Bardajov for 2 nights to visit my mother's parents, so I am staying at home with her. It's going to be a long 2 days. I don't know what I'm going to do for those hours. Oh yeah. I'm sorry, so I wish her a speedy recovery. I have a brother again. A few years older, lives in Prague. Oh yeah. I had so many questions for her again. Where she lives, what she likes to do, her favorite movies and books, and so on. But I didn't ask any of that. I was willing to write with her all afternoon and all evening, but I had to go and take care of something. When I came home by car, it was already night. I woke up at 9 in the morning. As soon as I got up, I was pleased with her message. Good morning. How did you sleep? All right. You? Also, but already at 7 I had to go to take my parents to Bardajov. I'm just going around the Tatras. See. She sent me a photo. She was probably standing in the parking lot and the camera was pointing at the Western Tatras. Beautiful. I haven't been in the Tatras for a long time. Neither do I always just pass by. I had a very good time with her. Although it was just a light conversation, I felt that he was writing sincerely. She sent me a few more photos. They were really beautiful. You could even feel her thoughts in them. When I was looking at those photos, different verses came to mind. So as always, I grabbed the nearest possible piece of paper and started writing. When I finished writing and my head was already half empty, I found out that the next class was behind me again. When I finished my lunch, I sent her a photo of my culinary specialty. She was pleased and she also showed me the food, pancakes, that she made for her sister and herself. She said that she had to go, but that she would let me know later how things are going with Peter. I wished her good luck. In the afternoon, I was outside to take some pictures for my poem about nature today. I stopped in a park full of blooming summer flowers. I write poems on paper, and each time I print photos to go with them, fasten them together with a paper clip and hang it on my bedroom wall. I have about 50 of these poems with photographs. I have a bedroom with soft accessories in burgundy and a little white. I live in an attic apartment with a balcony in the center of Przalka, as I already mentioned. When I came back from photographing, it was already evening. I always have a lot of fun with it. It's a relaxing hobby. All I wanted now was for Rebecca to call me. Mobile is a good thing. It brings people together, we are closer, but at the same time further away. Rebecca didn't hear from me even until 9 in the evening, so I wrote to her myself. Hi. She didn't write me back. What's going on? Is everything all right? I asked her. She promised to call me in the afternoon, but nothing. I checked my phone every 5 minutes until I passed out and started reading my unfinished book. I have read many books in my life. Many of them gave me inspiration in life, until I found that I had to live my own story. In books I read about love, about pain, about loss, or about the future. There was hope in them. Thoughts from the distant past. There was uncertainty or fear in them. Fights like enemies playing chess. Well, I also read poems. There were loving passions in them. I will also describe the girl in the poem. A beautiful, fragile flower. She is my light. My gentle meadow flower. She didn't write me back the next day, or the third, or even the fourth. The posts from my mystery lady were getting nicer and nicer, but she wasn't giving them as often anymore. I was worried that something had happened to her. I didn't do anything extra for those few days. I called a couple of times with my brother. I was in a cafe with Patrick, and then I was at a meeting from elementary school. I also met Karen there. It was a hateful look, full of unfulfilled obligations that she had once promised me. She was staring, and the eyeless look prickled my skin. Her outward beauty has not changed. She still had pretty blonde hair, but her insides were even more disfigured. I couldn't look at her knowing that she had only used me before. I had to leave. I couldn't look at her any longer. When I got home, I took a shower as always and then turned on the TV. Of course, there was nothing on it at all. The 14th chapter. Rebecca. It seemed to me that the world had gone completely mad. It was again the confused feeling that everything is upside down. Livia insisted that she had no intention of moving, and I, on the other hand, was completely on my nerves when my mother refused to allow me to finally live alone. I was practically of legal age, but they still have me under their care. I thought that I would finally live as an adult in Bratislava. I was already accepted to the art school there. I was also in a similar one in Zelina. The only difference was that this one will be high school. They miraculously accepted me a year earlier than they should have. They told me that I was too good and that they didn't have anything new to teach me in high school. It was good on the one hand. I will finally change the environment, but on the other hand, I will be the youngest in the year. Everyone will be at least a year scarier than me. I won't know anyone there. Well, isn't it terrible? She asked I suddenly after my long monologue to Nika. We sat in a cafe and talked about my problems and hers. Finally, someone who doesn't mind my embarrassing problems. Nike was very sorry to see me move. We are actually leaving in 2 days. Ours have already bought the apartment. Livy has already secured school, and so have I. Mom has a new job. Did Dad find something he will enjoy, and me? I will probably wait a long time to get what I want for my happiness. I won the lottery so that I could go to a modest apartment. It will probably be difficult to find a modest and cheap one in Bratislava, so I assume that cheap is a good option. Nika and I were supposed to say goodbye only on the day of departure, but she told me that on that day they were leaving for Poland to visit their cousin, so we had no choice but to say goodbye today. It's unimaginable how grateful I am to Instagram for providing me with the closest person I've ever met. Nika was my support and support many times. Thanks to her, my world took on a friendly atmosphere, and I no longer wandered around the city alone in the afternoons. She was kind to me and showed me that not all people are bad. We laughed together and had many moments together that I could tell you about for hours. And that's why I'm so sorry that our times have come to an end. I know we'll see each other a few more times, but it won't be the same. We said goodbye and I slowly walked out of the cafe. She hurried home, but I didn't. I know it was 6 o'clock and I should probably go home slowly, but I really didn't want to. I went to see some shops, to see something for myself. I found a few new things that could be useful in my new city. There will certainly be artistic souls with a sense of fashion and design at the art school. I'm rather ordinary. There were various artists at my school in Zelina. Many of them had their hair dyed crazy colors. They wore rings in their ears, but it suited them. Everyone knew that they loved what they enjoyed, that they loved design. I didn't fit in there myself. Many of the ladies were wearing designer sweatshirts or jeans that were the latest fashion, but I was still dressed in my sweaters or blouses. Many times they said many things to my face, which if they had come out of my mouth, I would have been very sorry and I would have regretted my words, but it didn't mean anything to them that I was hurt. I found out during my teenage years that when a child doesn't have puberty, it starts to bother the parents even more than if they didn't have puberty at all. The others were at the disco, I was at home. The others were hanging out outside, I was at home. The others went shopping after school, I was at home. My mother was upset and tried to pull me out, but I didn't want to. I passed by a jeans store and stopped to look at some I might like. I chose to. I didn't go shopping for a long time, so I also bought new t-shirts and a sweater, my favorite part of the clothing. It was about 8:30 when I was closing the trunk door of the car. I stopped on the way for a hot dog because I was more than hungry. When I got home, it was already late. I started packing in the morning. I sorted things from my room into boxes. When I finished my room, I went to wake up Livy to help me with the living room and the kitchen. Ours went in the morning to arrange the removal service for tomorrow afternoon. When we cleaned the entire living room and kitchen in the afternoon, we only had the bathroom and the hallway left. We shared services with Livy and went to clean again. Our parents also helped us. They cleaned their room and Dad started putting our clothes in boxes in the car. Our house will have new owners from tomorrow. One couple came to see it 3 weeks ago and they want to buy it right away. After a whole day of cleaning, I posted only one new quote on Instagram because I was very tired. I found about 10 unread messages from Jacob about 2 days ago, but I couldn't write him back. The next morning, I was the last one to get up. We were supposed to leave at 11 o'clock. I dressed in the things I planned to travel in and slowly went down the stairs. The house was almost empty. All the accessories, the couch, tables, and chairs were gone. Livy was already handling it better. I explained to her that she would have new opportunities and meet new people in Bratislava. I had breakfast and then went to check my room to see if I had forgotten anything in it. I had the bed and wardrobes with the moving service, so I couldn't lie on the bed. I sat down under the window and leaned against the wall. I took out my phone and decided to finally call Jacob after 5 days. Hi. I'm sorry I haven't posted, but I've been busy with downloading. He wrote me back almost immediately. I was finally glad, after a long time, that I can see messages from him again. It was a beautiful feeling. Are you moving? And where, of course, if I may ask? To Bratislava. Our people here in Martin were not very satisfied. They wanted a change, so they forced me to take this big step. Oh yeah, you didn't want to move? No, not much. I like it here. I have everything here. You're probably going to miss your friends, aren't you? They won't. Why? I don't have many friends here. I am sorry. They don't need you, don't worry. And you? Where do you live? Where you're moving? Like I just got slapped. That was the kindest, most beautiful, and best thing he could say to me. My heart did a somersault. Literally. It finally made sense to me why fate sent me to school in Bratislava, because my never-before-seen, but I hope, kindred spirit lives in Bratislava. Do you really live in Bratislava? Yes. Wow, that's great. Why? You already like Bratislava a little more when you know that I live there, right? Probably yes, that will probably be it. So I hope to see you sometime and meet up. Okay. So this is the most amazing thing he could have said to me. He wants us to meet. I too hope to meet. You might have just thought that I fell on my head, that I wanted to meet a complete stranger, but I believed him. He is my savior after all. He saved me from that guy who was texting me nonstop. I love him. Even if I don't know who he is, I feel something unimaginably big full of feelings for him, so it's nothing but love. I didn't want to say goodbye to my home. I liked the 7 years I lived here in monastery under the castle. Those were interesting years, full of unexpected events. I didn't want it to end, but at the same time I knew that I would start living again in Bratislava. Livy was sad that we were leaving. About 10 friends came to say goodbye to her in front of the house. After lovingly hugging everyone, she got into the car and waited for her parents to bring a suitcase with things for the trip, which will fit in our car. Our parents didn't want me to go alone in my car, so they stuffed Livy and about 2 other boxes with my mother's room accessories into my car. My parents got into their car and I turned on the ignition. And that was the last time I looked at our 1-story gray house with big windows. It was an emotional look, as if I had lost a piece of my past. Livy was sad and didn't say a word on the way to Zelina. In Zelina, we stopped to sign the papers stating that I had been accepted elsewhere for the next year. It's the end of August. The holidays officially end in less than a week, and the professors were already at school. I said goodbye to my former class teacher and signed some necessary papers. I have already finished school in Bratislava. The paperwork won't be waiting for me there. When we left Zelina, and practically nothing kept me around Turku anymore, that is, except for memories, I decided that my life was beginning to write a new stage. Moving is a big step in everyone's life, but I think I handled it well. I've already learned. I'll explain that later. We went as far as Trenton for lunch. I had my classic, fried cheese with fries. Livy and her mother ran to a clothing store, because Dad had to go to a store to pick up something, so we had a little extra time. I went to buy ice cream and ran out to the terrace in the shopping center. I took out my phone and took a picture of Trenton. I sent this photo to Jacob so that he really believed that I was moving. Trenton is a nice city. Say hello for me. He wrote to me after a while. And how are you? I am fine. In the morning, I went to pick up my salary for the part-time job. Where did you work part-time? In the cafe, but school is going on and I wouldn't have time to continue it. I need to find something that will suit me better during the school year. Oh yeah. At the beginning of the summer, I also worked part-time in a restaurant and would have continued to do so if I had not moved. And how are you looking forward to Bratislava? Have you ever been here? Yes, I'm looking forward to something more. I've only been to Bratislava once, when we went on an excursion with the class, otherwise I don't know it at all. Oh, so turn on your GPS so you don't get lost in the future. I left. He was nice and it felt like we had known each other for a few years. Livy and her mother came with a shopping bag and Dad arranged what he had. We got into the car and continued our journey. It was 4 o'clock when we arrived in Dubravka. The moving service was already on site and Dad went to navigate them where they should start storing things and furniture in the house. Liv's moods were changing and now she was happy again and open to new experiences. She ran around the house within a minute and squealed with happiness. And now I'll tell you what our new home looked like. It's a new building and from the outside it has white plaster, a black roof, big windows, and a story. It breathed newness from the inside. It was completely empty, but the walls had been painted in advance as my mother had wished. I entered the living room connected to the dining room and kitchen through a nice corridor. It was a large space with a beautiful view of the green garden. The bathroom was in earthy colors. Right next to the bathroom was the parents' room. I went up the stairs and there were 2 doors. One for me and one for Livy. There were inscriptions on them, so I knew which one would be mine. I opened the door. I had a beautiful big window in my room. There was a sofa under the window for watching the view, and a smooth carpet had already been laid on the floor. The wall was slightly coffee-colored. I went downstairs to help my parents unload. I took all the boxes that were mine to my room. Dad and Mom were just making my bed, and Livy was cleaning her things on the table in her room. After ours left, a big furniture move began in my room. The table ended up by the window and the bed on the opposite side. I opened the box with my things and started to put them away. I put my new textbooks from school on the table, I put the things for painting on the shelves above the table, and I started to put my books on the shelves above the bed. I have the entire Bronte series and everything from Austen and lots more. I added my collection of cacti and it was almost done. I just had to change the duvets, and the robot was behind me for 5 hours. Mom and Dad had almost finished everything, but they left a few things for the next day. I was so tired that I literally fell into bed right after the shower. The 15th chapter. Jacob. 4 days later. Rebecca told me that she had already worked in Bratislava, specifically in Dubravka. The more I wrote to her, the more I wanted to meet her, and the more I wanted to look into her eyes. I didn't even realize how much I missed a good girl. Some that I would really like, but I didn't want to make any hasty moves. It was too early to fall in love again, but too late to regret new possibilities. Rebecca may have been the change in my life, but how could she be when I don't even know her age? She knows mine. I gently hinted at it in the message I sent to Peter, but she didn't tell me. And I didn't want to ask. I was afraid that my mysterious lady would scare me. It was a strange feeling knowing that my lady is in the same city as me, but I don't know who she is or what she looks like. I was walking around Old Bratislava and went to sit in a small cafe on the corner. I pulled out my phone and took a photo of the coffee and muffin and sent the photo to Rebecca. Yum, that muffin looks good, she wrote to me. The people around looked happy, as if they lacked nothing in life. I wished them to have what they wanted, but who will wish it to me? I want nothing more than someone I can trust without fear of it ending. Endings leave a person with pain. City don't know the word love anymore. They leave behind only sadness and tears. And what is that pain? Is it a feeling or a trick? I walked for days or years through dark streets. People's eyes were filled with love. I was afraid that I would end up at the bottom. Holding hands or kisses were just strangers. A lie is treason and hands are imprisoned in handcuffs. The heart only bleeds from deep wounds. But the liar does not pay for his actions yet. And the thoughts in the head are still entangled. What should I do with so much injustice? Should I stand up and start over? The words spoken hit the head like a bell. I guess I have no choice but to continue wandering in the dark. My poetry gives me a reason to be at least a little bit happy. It gives me a sense of security that I can put my feelings and thoughts into it at any time. Sometimes completely bizarre verses come to mind, but I put them down on paper. And then something off topic occurred to me. Hi, you said you would like to meet sometime. If you'd like, I'm available anytime in the afternoon. I would be happy to come wherever and whenever you want, smiley face. I wanted to be nice. She didn't write me back until I got home. Hi, that sounds good, but I don't know when I would be able to. Tomorrow is the first day of school and I will have more free time, so if you can, we can tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. Okay, that's a good time. I finish school at 2 p.m., but I don't know where we'll meet. If you want, I can come to see you at school. That would be great. I go to a college of fine arts. All right. See you there. I'm excited. Me too, but how will I recognize you there among all the people? And how do you know me? Do not worry. I'll find you somehow. It was like a dream come true, after all the long writing that took forever, and I finally get to see her this week. I had to come up with something for her to find me and not just shout her name at the whole school. I found A3 paper in the apartment and started writing. I wrote on the board in large print, "Foreigner from the internet." It was true, so she will recognize me, because I am a stranger to her, and if it wasn't for the internet, I would never have recognized her. I was very upset about the whole meeting. I was overwhelmed with so many questions. What does he look like? Will she like me? Will we ever meet again? Does this mean she wants to be friends with me? What if it cancels meetings at the last minute? What if he gets scared and doesn't show up at all? Well, what if not? I was terribly confused, so I better go prepare things for tomorrow's first day back at school. I called Patrick in the evening and told him what was going to happen tomorrow. We talked for a long time, and he was just as curious as I was if the mysterious girl would show up tomorrow. The 16th chapter. Rebecca. I thought I must be dreaming. The whole universe came together for me to meet my Jacob. It is indescribable how full of new ideas I was that night. Everything revolved only around him, around no one else but him. I was so disoriented I didn't know what I was doing. Can I be head over heels in love with someone I know nothing about? Tomorrow's meeting kept me awake, so I thought about it until 2 in the morning. In the morning, I had a dilemma about what to wear so that Jacob would like me. I chose for a long time and finally decided on bell-shaped black pants, red Converse sneakers, a white t-shirt, and a denim jacket. When I got dressed and she went down the stairs, there was a smell in the air. Mom, I'm going out with a guy today. I don't know when I'll be back. You know, it's like when you haven't left the house to meet a guy in 2 years. Mom starts to make trouble. Who's this? I know him? Have you met him yet? She asked. His name is Jacob. Neither you nor I know him. We have never met. I was always honest with my mom, so I didn't mean to lie. Please? You don't know him? Is that the one who was pestering you and sending you those nasty messages? You're not going out with that under any circumstances. No, this is not him. And besides, I'm of legal age. I can hang out with whoever I want. That's the best thing. When you're 18, you can use that excuse. He is a complete stranger. What if he wants to lure you out and then do something to you? I'll be careful. I'm not little anymore. If anything, I'll let you know. I'm sorry, Mom, but if I don't leave the house now, I'm going to be late for school, I said and closed the door. I started the car and drove around Bratislava towards the school. On the way, I dropped Livy off at her new school and wished her good luck. I parked in the parking lot in front of the school and took my backpack out of my trunk. I entered the building and saw what I expected. There were a lot of artistic souls. Students had their own handmade clothes and accessories. There were also girls who had branded everything, maybe even rubber bands in their hair. A few guys had their hair dyed in crazy colors. Compared to them, I was ordinary. As always, I didn't fit in. We got to the classroom and I sat at the very back. We had benches where we sat one at a time, an advantage for me. The professors explained to us today's program. At 9 o'clock, as freshmen, we were supposed to have a tour of the school, followed by the New Year's opening of the school year. When we arrived at the atrium after the tour of the school, the principal gave a speech and welcomed us, the new students. Then we all moved to our classrooms and explained what was going to happen. The school made a very good impression on me. After lunch, we each had to go to our class professor to get the class schedule and the necessary things. It was exactly 14:25 when we finished. I started to knock myself a little. There were only 5 minutes left until our meeting and I had no idea who I was going to meet. I left the classroom towards the lockers where I had put my papers and hurried to the front door where a complete stranger was waiting for me. My breath was getting faster and faster and I had a lump in my throat. I slung my backpack over my shoulders and walked through the long corridors. I already had the front door in sight. All I had to do was open the door and look at my stranger. I took a breath and pushed the door open. It was exactly 3:30. The street looked busy and I didn't know who to look at. I looked from side to side, right, left, and back again. In my mind, I imagined a tall black-haired guy with blue eyes like an unexplored ocean. I stood on my tiptoes to see better through the crowd of people, because from my height I can hardly see anything. And then I noticed him. He was leaning on his side against a tree and holding a piece of paper with "stranger" from the internet written on it. What he wrote really described him. He smiled pleasantly, and in that, all the worries that were eating me up, that he was some grown-up 40-year-old guy who wanted to bait me out, suddenly fell away. I smiled too and walked towards him. I thought about a million ways in my head. What should I say to him first? I thought of a lot of scenarios and loved to throw myself around his shoulders, but I didn't want to fall in love again and go headlong into it. "Hi. I finally get to know you in person and not just through the news," he said. "Hello. Nice to meet you too," I smiled timidly. "Where would you like to go?" he asked me in a velvety voice. I almost passed out from that beautiful, intoxicating sound. "I have a car not far from here. We can go for a walk somewhere," I answered. "All right. Otherwise, it suits you." "Thanks," I whispered in denial. So that means he likes me. It pleased me and I timidly looked into his face again. My dream black-haired boyfriend could have just buried himself because I was staring into the face of a fashion icon. He was beautiful and kind, a killer combination in a guy. His eyes were like mint or emerald. His face was like an angel, my guardian angel. "You wouldn't believe how many questions I have for you," I laughed when you got into my car. "Ask questions, but questions will be waiting for you too," he said, and he also smiled. "So, Jacob, right? And you're 19, right?" I repeated the information, just to be sure. "Yes, and you are Rebecca." "Well, I don't know your age." "I'm 18. I announced and looked into those beautiful eyes again. They, too, were burning with knowledge, just like mine, too. Our conversation was easy. First we talked about how I like Bratislava, where I lived before, and what I liked most about Turks. He told me that he lives alone in Bratislava in an apartment in Petržalka, that he attends the J. Comenius University. I had a good conversation with Nika, but with Jacob it was different, better. I smiled a lot, which I haven't been doing very well lately. I talked a lot, which was unusual for me, and I often looked into the emerald eyes, from which you could feel a deep story. Maybe I looked into them too often and forgot I drive. "And where are we going?" he asked me after a moment of silence, but even the silence was pleasant with him. "I have no idea." How about the castle or the river?" I suggested without hesitation. "Okay, that sounds great. I'll show you a nice place." I nodded and turned towards the Danube. We parked and got out of the car. He came closer to me and we walked towards the river. I didn't know what to expect, but I didn't want to stop. The 17th chapter. Jacob. School went great, but I was looking forward to the afternoon even more. When we finally finished, I got on the bus and drove to Rebecca's school. We were only minutes away from our meeting. I took my paper out of my bag and held it in my hand. I didn't know what he looked like, so I relied only on the fact that he would understand what I had on paper. I looked around and noticed the passing girls. Who could it be? I didn't even know her hair color, so it was hard to spot the right one. When I least expected it, a lady with beautiful brown wavy hair like ocean waves ran up to me. She was beautiful, probably the most beautiful I have ever seen. I greeted her first like a proper gentleman because she looked visibly upset. She greeted me too, with a soft honey voice caressing her lips. She smiled timidly. I asked her where she wanted to go. I didn't care at all, especially since I was with her. I couldn't stop looking into her chocolate brown eyes. They were irresistible. And her lips, they were already fragile to look at. I didn't know how to be close to her so that she wouldn't be scared of me, so I kept a gentle distance to begin with. She told me that she had a car nearby, that she could take us. I nodded and we walked down the road to her white car. I boarded. The journey was not long because I enjoyed every minute and every moment with her. She also often looked at me, probably not even realizing it. In fact, we were complete strangers. We had never even seen each other before, exchanged a few words, or even passed by each other, but it seemed to me as if we had known each other forever. We talked about her home in Turku. She told me where she used to live and where she went to high school. I could see in her that she didn't want to tell me much, because she didn't know who I was, and I completely understood her in this. I wanted to ask her if she had been with someone before, but it seemed too early for that because she has only known me for 10 minutes. She stopped in a small parking lot where there were about 12 cars. She got out, and so did I. I moved closer to her, but she gently moved away, leaving a gap of more than 50 centimeters between us. I wanted to take her hand, but I knew she would be scared of me. After a moment of silence, she chose a bench on the bank of the Danube and sat down on it. I sat down further from her so as not to look intrusive, but what she did pleasantly surprised me. She moved closer and bit her lip. She was shy, but she didn't have to be in front of me. I stared into the water and more rhymes about my lady began to come to mind. Now I know you, I see you. It's no longer just a dream. It's no longer just an imagination. I couldn't wait for this day for so long. And suddenly it's a reality. The question of how you look has long been resolved. The idea of you is just a thing of the past. Now art is in front of me. It's like from an artist. The beauty of your portrait will captivate everyone. Verses and rhymes came to me line after line. One look at her was enough, and that was it. We sat there for a long time and talked. We looked at each other for a moment, and then suddenly, when our eyes met, we looked away from each other. Her hands were on her knees, and I noticed a silver rose bracelet on one of them. Your favorite flower is a rose, right? I asked. I must have snapped her out of her thoughts, because she answered after a while. Yes, they smell nice. How are you? I'm observant and perceptive, I said quietly, but I was sure she heard me. And yours? Do you have a favorite flower? Lilies or tulips, I think I said. Lilies are beautiful. They seem to me to be a symbol of femininity, because they are fragile and delicate. She was interested in my answer and probably thought about it. What are you thinking about? I asked when she lowered her head after about a minute of silence. I'm thinking about how to thank you, she whispered and looked into the Danube. Thank you for what? You saved me, remember? Before that guy, if you hadn't texted him and reported him on Instagram, he would still be texting me. Thank you for that, she said and touched my hand for a second as a thank you, then pulled it away again. I told her she didn't have to thank me and that I was glad she got rid of the guy. I'm sorry, I'm not the talkative type. I'm sorry I don't talk much, I'm probably quite boring. She apologized to me. I answered her that she doesn't need to apologize to me and told her that silence is close to me. In my opinion, there are the most conversations and thoughts in silence anyway. In silence, a person is himself and can think about anything. Silence is influential on words. If we think carefully about what we want to say in silence, we will never hurt a person. Come on, I'll show you something, I said, and showed her the direction we were going. She willingly got up and followed me. She was about 25, maybe less, centimeters shorter than me. She had to tilt her head to look into my eyes. It was cute. We walked slowly for about 20 minutes along the path along the Danube. Since when have you lived in Bratislava? She asked me. For more than 10 years. My brother and I moved here when I was 9, and my father lives in Trnava. Oh, and Mom. My mother left when I was little. My father was devastated by it and couldn't take care of us, so my brother took me in, I explained. She seemed to understand, and after this long, serious debate, I switched to something lighter. Now I'll show you my favorite place, okay? It's a swing about 10 meters away, I said and smiled. Swing? Are you serious? I love swings, she answered enthusiastically and continued. In Turkey, in my village, we had a swing on the hill, which I always went to in the evening, but my favorite place is a little outside Zelina, a swing above the lake, my personal paradise on earth. She finished. I pushed back the branches so she could pass. When she saw the swing, her eyes suddenly burned with enthusiasm. She sat down and began to swing. It was a wonderful, indescribable sight of joy to see her happy. It was slowly stopping her, but she was small and her feet could not reach the ground. I held out my hand to keep her from falling, and she held onto it uncertainly. She thanked me for the experience, but I didn't need thanks. All I wanted to see was her satisfaction on her pretty face. It was 7:30 in the evening when we were sitting on the bank of the river and throwing flip-flops into the water. She never managed to hit more than 3. I had fun with it, but not in a snarky way. Try as she might, she couldn't beat my 6. Aren't you hungry? I asked. A little bit. Come on, I know a good restaurant, I said, and willingly waited while she tried to throw the last flip-flop into the calm evening water. We walked back to the car. Wouldn't you rather be the driver? I really don't know where it is, she asked. I guess she trusted me a lot when she let me drive her car. As we were walking along the evening road, her phone rang. Hi. Don't worry, I'm fine, Mom, she said. Come home already. It's late, and especially don't go to his house. You don't know what kind of guy he is and what he wants from you, said the voice on the phone. Mom, calm down please, I'm fine. I don't know when I will come. Hi. I said goodbye. I'm sorry about Mom. She's a bit hysterical. You think I want to kidnap you or something, don't you? And that I'm some kind of guy with bad intentions, right? I try to turn it into a funny situation. Probably. Well, I don't think you're evil, she said, smiling softly. When she finished, we were just at the finish line. I like this restaurant very much. She chose a table for 2 by the window. I moved her chair so she could sit down. The waitress brought us a menu to choose from. Could this be considered a first date? Probably yes, but it was like a blind date. I didn't know who I was going to meet. We ordered 1 pizza, my favorite classic. While we were waiting, she started to ask me about my account on the internet that has many beautiful poems as I can think of. I write my feelings or thoughts and put them on paper. In this way, I get rid of thinking about various useless things that fill my head. And I also have a question about your quotes. I think about them many times, and they really have a very instructive meaning. They are deep and true. How can you do that? Well, actually, I never thought about it that way. They just come by themselves, spontaneously. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm writing. I just need to get it out. She told me. Do you have other hobbies besides writing poetry? She asked after a long pause. You may have just wondered why we haven't talked for so long. This is because neither of us know what we can and cannot ask. There are certainly obstacles that we cannot yet overcome in communication, or we have not yet learned to do so. We have known each other for almost only 5 hours and know practically nothing about the other. The waiter arrived with the pizza a few minutes later. He wouldn't irritate me so much if he didn't give Rebecca every look. After all, he's a waiter, and he's not supposed to be looking at girls. I cleared my throat loudly for him to stop. Rebecca laughed, amused at my gesture. When the waiter left, Rebecca spoke to herself. "Tell me, will we meet again?" "If you don't mind, of course," I said sweetly and took a bite of the Hawaii pizza. I really don't understand people who can't stand pineapple on pizza. It's amazing. "Do you really want to meet again?" "And when?" "Whenever you want." "Even tomorrow," I answered her willingly. I still kept my gaze on her eyes. They fascinated me a lot. She was very pleased with my answer and smiled sincerely at me. People started gathering at the restaurant at 8 o'clock. Although it was only Thursday and not Friday, the city was still alive. We finished our pizza and agreed that I would pick her up from school tomorrow in the car at 13. They say they finish earlier tomorrow. I didn't know where to take her, but I will definitely think of something in the near future. She put on a denim jacket from the hanger, and I went to pay for now. I insisted that I would pay for our dinner tonight. When we left the restaurant, I held the door for her. Even though I was raised by my brother for practically 3/4 of my life, I learned that women should be loved and respected. She thanked me properly and gave me a short look. Now she was driving home and said that since I didn't have a car with me, she would drive me home. I navigated her to the street where I live, and she parked in front of the apartment building. "So you live here?" "It's amazing. I would also like to live alone." I nodded that yes, this is my home. "What floor do you live on?" "Way up. See that balcony up there? There's my bedroom." I pointed to the left balcony on the 6th floor. "So tomorrow is valid?" she asked controllingly. "Of course. I'll be there and I'll show you something new in Bratislava, okay?" "Okay, well, hello. And thanks for getting to know you," she smiled. "I'm happy too. Good night. Write to me that you got home safely. And don't get lost here," I said, because I was worried about her and I wanted to be sure that she would come back to Dubravka safely. She got into the car and waved to me, started the car, and only the lights in the distance could be seen. I opened the door to the apartment and turned on the light. My head was spinning. Only my little-known girl. I kept playing the portrait of her beautiful face over and over in my head. Brown hair with a hint of honey, chocolate brown eyes, and beautiful soft lips. Thoughts swirled in my head, and I tried to write a poem about her, but I couldn't. No words were enough to describe her. She called me in about 15 minutes and wrote me that she got home safely. I will never forget that day. It was perfect, and even if only a little, I got to know a person like no other. She was special and full of secrets. She was my lady, full of mysteries. With these words on the lips, everyone would fall asleep sweetly. The 18th chapter. Rebecca. How to describe a completely ordinary school day compared to last night? Well, not at all, because it can't be compared. All night I thought about Jacob and his words and sentences he told me. She was an artistic soul full of emotions and feelings. I didn't talk much, I was shy, but he understood me and I didn't have to play anything in front of him. He saw me as I was and didn't mind even if we sat in silence. The images in my head replayed his face every now and then. Brown hair and mint green eyes and a beautiful, irresistible smile. The hours passed very slowly. We started learning the new material right away, regardless of the fact that yesterday was our first day of school. The professors were very nice and didn't mind explaining to me what I could find where. I kept getting lost in the huge maze of corridors. Before lunch, I visited the school library and went to pick out Shakespeare's sonnets, which we received as compulsory literature for the quarter. I've read all of Shakespeare's works, but my favorites are A Midsummer Night's Dream and Much Ado About Nothing. I have already read all the sonnets, but I did not hesitate to read them again. In the afternoon, we had one more art history class, which I really enjoyed. We imagined a number of artistic techniques of antiquity and the Middle Ages, and later also the first well-known or less well-known medieval artists and their most famous works. It was interesting and informative. When the class ended, the students started to leave the class and I hurried as well. Jacob was already waiting for me at the door. Hi, how was your day? Good, we just finished the art history lesson. And how was your day? Also pretty cool. Well, the last few minutes were already too long for me. Come on, here's my car. I'll show you another one of my favorite places, he told me, pointing to a black car about 5 meters away from us. I obediently put it on. It was pleasant in the car. We drove in silence for a while. None of us seemed to know how to start a debate. Do you have any other questions you would like to know about me? I asked him. Yes, I would like to have a couple of them, and I have been wanting to ask one of them for a long time. Have you had a boyfriend since I last asked? I apologize if I am asking this early or inappropriately. You don't have to apologize to me. No, I haven't had a boyfriend since I was 16. Oh, on the one hand it's good. At least I won't have to borrow you from him or ask for reserved hours for our meetings, he joked, and I laughed softly. And you? You have someone, right? No, I haven't had anyone for a while either. Can I have another question? Of course, ask me anything, I said, because I was already up to my neck with the limits of what we can and can't ask. Okay. What happened that you answered at the beginning of our conversation that your biggest fear is that you will experience pain again? He asked. This was a difficult topic for me and I myself remembered it badly, but I am able to answer it. Well, it's complicated. I got a life-threatening blow at the age of 15. Until I was 15, I was quiet, even quieter than I am now. I was closed to the world, in my shell, and never came out of it, and then I met him. His name was Adam, and he was nice and attentive on the outside, but inside he was an egoist. I was naive to think he would change. But we got along a bit, at least in the beginning, until he started overdoing it. I wanted a peaceful relationship where it would be just me and him, no one else, no friends or anyone like that. I wanted someone who would understand me when I needed to be heard, who would hug me when I was having a hard time or things like that, but Adam was the exact opposite. In the evening, he didn't take me anywhere else but out with his band. He thought I didn't mind that he was already drinking at 16, but I did. He forced me to drink too, but I refused. Later, he didn't just mind my refusal of alcohol, but also started to mind my appearance. He told me to lose weight, even though, in my opinion, I didn't have that many extra pounds. He forced me to such a stage of losing weight that when I was in a restaurant or out with him, he didn't want me to eat. You might say that I was stupid for still being with him, but I didn't have anyone else. I didn't get along with my friends at all at that time. He pushed me to the point of anorexia, but he didn't deal with it. And when he thought I was too thin, he told me to gain weight and started insulting me for being ugly. And that's when it broke inside me. I broke up with him because I couldn't handle it on my own anymore. I wasn't at my best. The last time he scolded me for the breakup, that we can't just end it like that, and then I never saw him again. But maybe I'll meet him here. He lives somewhere here, in Bratislava. I finished. Then I noticed a confused expression on his face, maybe a little angry. It was strange. I felt as if he cared that no one would hurt me again. Well, I don't know what to say. I'm sorry for what happened to you, because I don't understand how someone can be so inhumane to a girl like you. He didn't deserve you. You deserve more than him, he said, gripping the steering wheel between his fingers. He frowned forward and watched the road, apparently thinking, Don't think about it. Don't think about him ever again, because he doesn't deserve space in your thoughts. He said and smiled at me. His anger had already passed, but we drove in silence the rest of the way to the mysterious place. The journey was not long, but the busy city was slowly passing behind us. We passed the vineyards in Ivanka near the Danube and turned towards another village. It was pleasant outside, but the breeze was already slightly cooling. He turned right in the village of Zalesy. Where are we going? I asked when I had run out of all the known routes in my head, but none of them matched this unknown location. Maybe you just thought that I didn't think that he wanted to kidnap me somewhere or something. Well, no, I didn't even think about it for a single second. My intuition simply told me that he wouldn't do it, and moreover, I could see the kindness in his eyes. Just let yourself be surprised. We're almost there. He informed me and stopped at the passage to let the lady with the stroller go. We walked a few more streets and parked on the spot. He got out of the car and gentlemanly came to open the door for me. I took out my backpack with books for studying over the weekend from my suitcase, because on Monday I have the first big paper from repeating the history of art. I was never very good at art history, so I wanted to learn it well. Welcome to my next favorite place. I'll take a blanket out of the car so we can sit down, he said, and left me on the wooden pier on the Little Danube. It was called Corso here, a small pier on the river with beautiful nature around. The birdsong created a wonderful, for me also romantic, atmosphere and added its charm to this magical place. Jacob arrived a moment later, carrying a red checkered blanket in his hand. We walked together to the very end of the pier, and there he laid it out. I sat down on the edge of the pier and tried the water in the river with my finger. This early September wasn't that cold, and the water was quite warm, so I took off my tennis shoes and dipped my feet in the water. He sat down next to me and pulled out a book from his bag. From the cover, I realized that it was a book by Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice. I have read it many times, but it still had its perfect touch. "What is your favorite book?" he asked me. She's read a lot in her life, but there are only 2 books at the top of my personal list, Wuthering Heights and the book you're holding in your hand. Yes, I agree with you. Austen has great books, but I like Bronte's writing style better. I personally adore Tolstoy. He has thoughtful books, and they also contain lessons for life. Which part of Pride and Prejudice is your favorite? I thought for a long time, but I finally decided on the end of the book. Elizabeth and Darcy are finally together, and that's the way it should be. Love always wins, even if we have to overcome many obstacles to reach it. I told him many things that I love about this book, and he listened carefully, looking at me kindly and with interest the whole time. I have never felt so amazing. I could talk about anything, and he really listened. I didn't have to be careful about what I said because I trusted him. After a terribly long time, I felt myself again, in my own skin. No matter what happens with my excessive trust in him, now he is what I've been looking for so long, and I'm not going to give up on him anytime soon. The 19th chapter. Jacob. It was really horrible to listen to everything she had to sacrifice for that ex of hers. He was a terrible guy if he forced a girl like Rebecca to do this. He couldn't care less about her if he allowed Rebecca to get to this point. Out of anger and resentment towards Adam, I gripped the steering wheel of the car tightly. She looked at me confused, wondering what I was doing, but I had so much anger in me that I couldn't imagine Rebecca being so weak side by side with someone so heartless. I will never let Rebecca be hurt again. Slowly, my anger subsided and I was calmer. In order not to think about it anymore, I looked into her face. She still had a lot of pain after what she told me, but apparently she's come to terms with it because she knows she can't change it. We were almost there when she asked me where we were headed. At first I wanted to tell her, but then I wanted to surprise her. I thought of the pier on the Little Danube as a nice walk. When I was little, I used to go there for walks with my brother, and after a while it became my favorite place to relax. When we parked, she went to see the surrounding beauty, and I took the blanket out of the car for now. I spread it out on a wooden pier. She took off her shoes and lowered her feet into the clear water. It occurred to me that I had an unread book in my bag that she might recognize, so I pulled it out. She recognized it immediately, and I learned that it was her favorite book. I opened the book to her favorite part and started reading it to her. She listened to me tensely and gently closed her eyes. She loved it, and I kept reading. We were both enjoying this beautiful moment, and as I was reading, I was forgetting reality and she was with me. I didn't care at all that we only knew each other for 2 days. After all, time is only a certain measure. It means nothing at all to me. It has no value for me. I didn't want to pressure her, and I myself was not identified with my past relationship, but really? It was too late to let this girl go without me. "Why did you stop reading?" she asked. I was thinking. I whispered quietly and stared at the calm surface of the water. She pulled her ankles out of the water and sat closer to me. I didn't know what he wanted to do, so I just let myself be surprised and thought nothing of it. Do you know that I don't care at all that we've only known each other for 2 days? She laughed and looked up at the sky. She put her hair in a braid, but one strand of her hair fell out. Oh, how cliché. I couldn't resist and tucked it behind her ear with my fingers. She blushed and smiled sweetly. It's a shame we didn't meet earlier. I would like to have known you before, so that I would have had someone with me then, in front of whom I would not have to pretend. Well, it's a nice feeling to have someone like that now, she thought aloud. I'm also sorry that I didn't meet you sooner, but I say that everything is as it should be. And what about your ex-girlfriend? What happened between you two, if I may ask? She asked after a long pause, apparently thinking for a moment. I don't want to keep any secrets from her, so I decided to tell her. I told her my whole long story about how Kaya and I met and how we got together. And then came the worst, sad part of the story, when I found out that Karen was just playing with me the whole time, so to speak, nothing more than that. I also remembered the day I broke up with her forever. I called her out as usual to our usual place, and she came as always in the most expensive outfit in her wardrobe. She was quite arrogant, and she was terribly into money. She didn't care about anything other than what to wear and what to buy new. When I politely informed her that I no longer want to work with her like this and pretend that we have, I don't know what kind of perfect relationship, she got mad at me and scolded me for the last time. I heard something about her recently. She is said to be an influencer on social networks and makes money from it somewhere near Koshitsa. As I was talking, Rebecca was still looking at me with an unfamiliar look. There was understanding, compassion, trust, and, as it were, a bit of love. Well, maybe I just imagined that love somewhere where it didn't exist at all. It was completely absurd that Rebecca would fall in love with me because she is beautiful and smart and great. She deserves someone more than me, doesn't she? Am I a good enough friend for her? Can I give her what she desires and what she truly deserves? Would she be happy with me? I had hundreds of thousands of questions about myself, to which I still had no answers. My story was over, and she knew the whole truth about me and my only ex. I wanted to tell her so much more about me, my life, and my dreams, but suddenly she stood up. I didn't know what he was doing, so I just watched idly. She looked at me and offered me her hand. I grabbed her and stood up too. What arrived was simply perfect. No words have enough value to describe the feeling that controlled my insides at that time. Our eyes met, and what had not been said until then came to the surface. I kept all the rhymes that flew through my head that afternoon, and I remember them to this day, because they were of great value to me. She came closer to me and blushed. She was barely a few centimeters away from me when she hugged me. She rested her head on my shoulders and closed her eyes. First, she gently hugged me and wrapped her arms around me. Her hair literally smelled like flower honey, so sweet. I hugged her too, but as always I didn't know how to be close to her, so I just gently held her waist. She held me closer, and I understood that I should do the same. Rebecca, I don't know how to be close to you. What can I do so that you don't get scared of me? Because we've only known each other for a while, I whispered to her quietly, and at the end my voice dropped completely. Jacob, I love you, regardless of how long we've known each other. Please tell me, do you love me too? She asked, her heart pounding like crazy. I knew I loved her, but I was flooded with questions again. I didn't know if I would be the right one for her, but I will try my best and as much as I can. Of course I love you. I knew it from the first moment I met you, but will you be happy with me? Jacob, of course I will. We will both learn to love again, and we will both start our relationships anew. I promise I will never hurt you. And I promise you that I will love you forever, she said and kissed me lightly on the cheek. I kissed her back, gently pressed my lips to her hair, and whispered again that I love her. This word is like a drug to me now. I said it once, and I will say it forever. My lady finally confessed to me. She opened the door to a world without darkness. It shows me the meaning of the word love. And I have no choice but to give her love. I will protect you with millions of troops. And you, be faithful to me. Give me another kiss. Your smile is my comfort. Because our young love is our hope. I whispered to her, and she suddenly pulled away from me and closed her face in confusion. I didn't understand what I had done or why she had that expression on her face, so I asked her instead, "What has happened?" "I have my personal Shakespeare. Could it be that the universe conspired to bring me something like you?" "I can't believe you made that up. You have a huge talent." "Thank you. Well, you're right about the universe. He conspired to bring us together." Finally, I wasn't breathing the same air as before. She spiced it up for me with a pleasant breeze of love. Before I met her, the air I used to breathe was only oxygen, but now it's different. Before we met, I had to focus on every single breath, focus on inhaling and exhaling, watch every single movement of my lips and nose so that I would not forget to breathe. There were a few moments in my life when I really wanted to stop breathing and my chest felt heavy. My life stopped like 2 gears and it didn't want to move forward. I was stuck between the past and the future. I was confused many times if he did the right thing. But now I want to breathe, and I don't want to focus on what I'm breathing because I'm already breathing my own substance for survival, her, because she's the reason why I shouldn't have given up. Rebecca is as important to me as what we breathe. He is my oxygen, which is necessary for survival. For me, time was just a measure that can't even be measured, because when I'm with her, time flies, but I don't waste a minute. We both gave each other a long look, but as I mentioned before, what's a long look when time can't be measured with her? It was an absurd question. Maybe it was so complicated that I couldn't answer it. She took out something strongly red and fragrant from her backpack. It smelled like morning, although the definition of morning is very difficult, but I would describe it as raspberries. Rebecca herself will tell you if I was right. "Well, what do you say about that?" she asked as she opened a small transparent box with no inscription. "Do you like raspberries, I hope?" Huh. So I was right. Raspberries were like a healthy substitute for chocolate for me. I know it sounds weird, but they're really sweet like chocolate. I love raspberries, I exclaimed enthusiastically. So those are the points for me. It's your turn, come on, score, she urged me. And I couldn't think of anything else but to kiss her. A sweet raspberry-scented kiss would sound romantic to any girl, am I wrong? I definitely won about 10-1, but raspberries also count. But apparently I was wrong, because as soon as I put my palm on her face, she pulled away. "I'm sorry, Rebecca. I'm sorry if I'm going too fast. It's not me apologizing, I don't know what I want," she admitted, thinking thoughtfully. She lowered her head for a moment and looked into the presumably calm surface of the water. There was silence for a long moment. None of us knew what to say. I was angry with myself for what I had done, and she was probably angry with herself. She had that look on her face. "Stop it," she said, and unexpectedly wrapped herself around my neck. She looked at my face and commented, "Cough on shyness, past and doubts. Honestly, I was just afraid that I wasn't good enough for you." "Are you afraid that you are not enough for me?" "You my fool, I'm afraid that I'm not enough for you. You're sweet and great and wonderful, and you think you're not enough for me? You give me everything, and you have already given me the most important thing. It is you who is holding my hand right now. Never doubt yourself again, okay? Promise me, please." I rested my forehead against hers. I was honestly a bit confused by her. She says she loves me once, and then she doesn't want to kiss. But okay, I understand that it's probably a little early for kissing. Maybe I should have just held her hand. We each thought for a while, probably about what to change in each of us. I decided not to pressure her. From now on I will know what I can afford and what I can't. But one thing I knew was that I would never change one thing about me. My one quality or thing or feeling, which I have embedded so deeply that it will never disappear from me. You probably know what it is, but if you don't, I'll tell you. The way I feel about her will never change. Because love for her is, I will probably use a sentence that will sound like a total cliche of every love, eternal. Well, I don't want our relationship to be like everyone else's. Our relationship will be like hers. It will be different from others. He will be special. Even when I am myself with her, I feel something more with her. You might think I'm being really cheeky when I write a poem about my love for her, but I'm not making this up. The word love has never meant more to me than it does right now. It has a completely different meaning than before, as with Kai. Now the word means to protect, to love, and to defend in one. I know that she can protect herself. She managed it in front of me too, but I can see in her eyes that when she is with me, she feels safe. The 20th chapter. Rebecca. Dreaming without dreams is difficult. Loving without love is difficult, and thinking without thoughts is simply impossible. But if you combine dreams, thinking, and love, and the result is thinking about dreams about love, then nothing is impossible. After a long pause, after he kissed me, the most beautiful, best, and most amazing guy I've ever known, I finally understood why I pulled away. A few minutes ago, I behaved rather unapproachably. Jacob wanted to give me a kiss with a soft hint of fresh raspberries, and I, like a real idiot, pulled away. Honestly, I got scared because I'm scared. I don't even know what. It's in me, although somewhere deep, but it's there that I shouldn't dig into things quickly, without thinking and headlong. Well, cough up the inner feeling of self-preservation. I only live once, right? So make it worth it. Then, clumsily, but full of interesting, vigorous, and sudden enthusiasm, I threw myself around his massive shoulders. I laughed at his surprised expression and put my arm around his neck. It was totally like a 13-year-old romance movie, but where do you think I get the inspiration to flirt with the perfect guy? The answer is right there. Poses like babies wrapping themselves around a guy's massive, beautiful neck, or wrapping around a guy's muscular chest and then watching his sweet reaction for a long time are so romantic. But which of you, babe, wouldn't want to try it? My personal perfect model was sitting on a picnic blanket right in my arms, even though he's twice my height, so you could say I was in his, so why not try? Look, he loves me, I love him, so why the hell am I afraid to kiss? I'm finally happy, so why am I complicating it again? He told me a few beautiful sentences that literally melted me with amazement. Only he can say it so beautifully. Are you wondering what happened next? That's what you want to know, right? I will tell you only a little, because the moments between me and him are indescribably beautiful and most importantly, they are only ours. But since this story is written about us, I will tell you a few of them. Romance was already when he gave me a smile. I went crazy for him. Another romance came when I ran my fingers over his hand. If you knew how much I love it when guys see veins on their hands after exercise. It's amazing, at least in my opinion. I ran my hand all over his forearm and returned back to the palm. There he gently grabbed my hand and put it on his face. I gently caressed his cheek. I walked up to him as close as I could, so close that my heart jumped out of my chest. I gave him one short kiss on the temples and whispered something very important in his ear. I love you. And nothing more needed to be said. The words had no weight for me because it was just us here. Me and him and me. A perfect moment with a perfect person was worth more than diamonds. I don't know how I lived without him for so long. He whispered the same thing to me, but it sounded sweeter from him. If you could only see him, you would understand why I love him so irrevocably. Bright eyes eager for love opened to me the knowledge of his soul, and his kind soul was a reflection of his kind character. A strong personality with good qualities or a tendency to protect. It was as if the soul was speaking directly to me. It was as if she was telling me that it was me who made up his time, that without me it was incomplete. He could have belonged to hundreds of thousands of girls, but he waited for me. He could choose and he chose me. Among more than 7.5 billion people, on 7 continents from 192 countries, from 27 cities in Slovakia, he chose me. When I calculated it like that, I guess I'm lucky. Don't be mad at me, but I'll keep the other romantic things that happened to myself. But I assure you, yes, I gave him the perfect kiss in the end. In the previous few days, we did a lot, even though we were separated by school. It would be practical if we went to the same school, sat together in the same class all day, and went everywhere together, to lunch, to the library, and even on a date in the afternoon. On Monday after school, we took a historical tour of Bratislava and admired the beauty of various monuments, such as the Bratislava Castle. We made it to the tour at 4 p.m. and looked around the entire castle. After the chatter of one not-so-pleasant female guide, who by the way was getting on my nerves by keeping her eyes on mine, I point out to my Jacob, and also by the fact that she kept smiling at him and took away my self-confidence a little. Also by the fact that she was charmingly more beautiful than I am me. After the tour of the castle, she was even so ill-mannered that she almost came to Jacob's phone number with a pen and paper, even though she could see that I was holding his hand tightly like a pincer and was not going to lend it to some other girl. However, Jacob noticed it. He probably saw how I was piercing the young lady with a harsh and hateful look and was a little amused at me, but he reacted correctly to the young lady's drooling appetites. He grabbed me around the hips and in the courtyard, in front of her eyes, well, in front of everyone's eyes, he kissed me gently, but with a romantic touch. I grabbed him around the neck and enjoyed the sight of the young lady angrily crumpling a piece of paper in one hand and nervously flicking a pen up and down in the other. "You're only mine, do you know that?" I whispered quietly after that beautiful and long kiss. "You don't have to be jealous, no one is interested in you. I don't care about the others, my brightest star in the universe is right here kissing me. The others are just fading meteorites that are frantically trying to attract me, but they're fading without success," he said, and after a while he spoke again. "And you won't believe how jealous I am of the other boys, but I see that they are also stolen from you, so I don't deal with it much, but it can't be completely ignored. When I see how they look at you and how beautiful you are, I want to tear them apart. I'm jealous, even though I know it's not necessary, because you're mine." He was right. I was his and he was mine. And it was nice to kiss him in front of the girl who already thought he would give her his number right away. Another incident, similar, but this time it was not me who was jealous, but Jacob, took place on Tuesday afternoon in a shopping center. I took it to the grocery store because I wanted to buy something small for myself. We shopped in Terra Nova. He willingly handed me pieces of clothing into the fitting rooms, and I showed myself to him every time. When I was little, I always envied older women who, just like me now, went to the clothing store with their friends. I just showed up to him in a lime green t-shirt with white delicate floral patterns and black jeans. He smiled and reminded me, "Do you know that you are beautiful in everything?" "Well, you didn't help me much with the selection," I said and turned to the mirror to look at it from all sides, and he was holding my things for now. And then a bunch of guys walked by. They were tall and one of them whistled when he saw me. Jacob turned around in a moment and I noticed a strange expression on his face. Only then did I understand that he looked exactly like I did yesterday. I grinned amused so that no one could see it and made a similar gesture as Jacob did yesterday. The guys were still standing there and staring at me, but it was, as they say, I don't care. Jacob was still staring at them, apparently not realizing it. One of them tried to flirt with me. He smiled at me, probably pleasantly for him, but unpleasantly for me. I knew that they probably didn't notice Jacob, that he was standing barely 2 meters from me, so it was time to remind them of him. As a friend in the right place, I proudly stood up to Jacob and held his hand tightly. The boys immediately lost their smiles and grimaced in displeasure. "How did you tell me yesterday? Aren't they jealous?" I poked at him teasingly and he just shook his head amused. He gave me a triumphant kiss on the forehead in front of those guys to officially show that I was his and sent me to the cabin to change. We didn't meet on Wednesday because I was in Zelina to see Nika. We had coffee, as I promised her, but I called him all the way back. And on Thursday? We both sat lazily in the restaurant and waited until after 3/4 of an hour they finally brought us our food. I leaned on his shoulder. After another quarter of an hour, they finally brought us sushi. Salmon with soy sauce is delicious, and we both love the combination. The weekend also passed rather lazily, but we agreed that on Sunday I will introduce my Jacob to ours and Livy. My mother doesn't even know that I'm dating anyone. I honestly told her all the time that I was going out with a friend. But it wasn't even a lie in the beginning, only then did we become real friends. It was 8:40 in the morning when I ran down the stairs to the living room to tell our family that I had a boyfriend. "Mom, please, don't pull pranks on me." I trilled as soon as my mother started dealing with my late adolescent swings in love. She started with the sentences. I quote, "How do you imagine dating a guy? You only had one? Where did you get all the experience you need for a relationship?" Well, just a typical mom. Well, she knocked me down with sentences like, "And have you already had something together? Don't even think of doing anything to you, because I will personally hurt him to the point of bleeding." Well, when my father joined everything, Livy also ran downstairs to ask why there is so much noise at our house at 9 o'clock. "Oh my God," she mumbled while trying to explain to them that I was just holding hands and kissing him because my mother was worried that I was dating some pedophile. Terrible parents these days, because I can't even come to show them my boyfriend without them thinking I'm dating a pedophile. Finally, I reassured my mother that his name was Jacob. I told her how old he was, but when she found out that he was 1.5 years older than me, she started making jokes about it being a deformity and the like, but even then she calmed down. Yes, my mother is a bit too hysterical, but I like her very much. After a long debate, we finally agreed that Jacob would come to us at 2:30 p.m. and that Mom would not fill out a questionnaire full of questions that Jacob would have to answer. I quickly went to tell him when he should start getting ready for us. "Hi. I finally agreed with my parents on 2:30 p.m. Can you do it then?" He wrote back almost immediately. "Yes, of course. I'll be at your place at 2:30 p.m. I was a little nervous because I didn't know what our people would do when they saw Jacob. Will they be excited or not? I hope so. Livy will be completely beside herself when she sees him. I know her. So I had a real mess in my room. I rarely put up with order. I quickly put my clothes away and cleaned the table with textbooks for school. When it was finished in an hour, I went downstairs to the kitchen and started preparing sandwiches and also something sweet like muffins. Livy proudly helped me all this time and did not talk about anything other than the fact that someday she too could have a boyfriend. We decorated the muffins together with chopped chocolate and baked them in the oven. For lunch we had pea soup and mainly food like turkey salad with corn and vegetables. When we finished eating, Livy started asking me a lot of questions. "Livy, so, why didn't you tell me about him earlier?" Me, well, we met in July, but we met 2 weeks ago. And I didn't have much time to tell my sister. Livy, phew. So it's serious. My old sister fell in love. This is crazy, she said, throwing her hands around the kitchen. She stomped up the stairs to her room, ranting along the way about a guy she likes, but he won't even look at her. At 1300 hours I went to my room to change. I combed my hair into a bun and gently let 2 strands of hair follow the outline of my face. I opened my closet and thought about what Jacob would like about me. After all, he told me that he likes yellow best in me. So I chose a daisy t-shirt with a soft yellow color and jeans to go with it. I smelled the pleasant scent of meadow flowers and went down the stairs to help my parents with coffee and tea. The coffee smelled pungently bitter, but at the same time sweetly like sugar. The muffins were already baked and Livy was placing them on a plate. It was enough to wait for Jacob. I stood impatiently like a child in the living room at 2:28 p.m. I wasn't used to someone close to me going on time, so I was quite surprised when Jacob made it exactly at 1:30. He rang the bell and I flew to the door at the speed of light. I opened the door and threw myself around his shoulders without thinking. He gave me a tight hug and then greeted me in a gentlemanly manner with an alluring and velvety voice. I also greeted him and then I looked him over. How could a magazine model be bad-looking? Well, That's simply not possible. He was wearing a dark brown turtleneck that perfectly lined his chest and muscles, but his hair flew unruly in the gentle breeze. I grabbed his hand and led him towards the living room. Mom looked friendly, and when she saw him, it probably softened her a little. I saw her looking at him. Dad was also apparently satisfied, because he usually gives it right away on his first impression. Jacob politely introduced himself and shook hands with his father. I was still holding on to him tightly, because I felt that I was probably a little stressed. He went to his mother, and I don't even know where he took out a bouquet of flowers for her. Mom's face lit up, and I could see that she was satisfied with my choice. She remained speechless, but then immediately thanked politely. And at that moment, Livy also came down the stairs. She blinked a few times, and she too was apparently stunned by his beauty. I'm not kidding, he's really amazing. I introduced him to her, and she rolled her eyes at me. Oh my God. Now I can't believe that he is your boyfriend, and she was dazed. When she regained her composure, she went to the kitchen to help her mother with the sandwiches, while I went to show Jacob the house. So, what do you say? What is your impression of ours? I asked curiously. Well, I think they might like me. What do you think about that? Yes, I think so too, but you should have seen your mother before you arrived. She threatened that I would bring it home. I talked as we walked up the stairs to my room. I opened the door and let him in front of me. He stopped in the middle and started looking around. Wow, did you paint that? He pointed at the lady with a bouquet of flowers. I nodded and he remained as if scalded. Well, honestly, I didn't like the oil painting that much because I saw one detail on it that really annoyed me. He walked over to the inner windowsill and noticed the empty picture frames. Maybe it's time to fill them, what do you say? Theoretically, but I really don't like taking pictures, I admitted. He laughed at my confession and thrust his hand suddenly into his trouser pocket. I sat on the bed and wondered what he was looking for there. When he found something, he hid it in his palm, but a piece of the small box stuck out. It was dark blue and had a white ribbon around the top. She was nice to look at, but the secret was what was hidden inside. The 21st chapter. Jacob. I was a little nervous, but who wouldn't be if you're standing in a jewelry store and the lady in front of you can't decide what pendant to buy for a bracelet for 35 minutes. I chose a beautiful necklace with a delicate blue butterfly pendant. I knew she really liked blue, but I personally liked it best in yellow. I wanted to please my lady with something precious, which would show her even more how much I love her. Admittedly, it took me a while, what I could have chosen for her, but when I look at the lady in front of me, it took me much less. The jewelry store was full, customers were choosing different rings and bracelets. I even met Patrick here, who went to pick out an engagement ring for his girlfriend. He was standing right behind me, so we talked for a while. He told him about his girlfriend, and I told him about mine. He told me he wished me the same, and I told him the same. Patrick is a good friend, but once in a while he really gets on my nerves. He doesn't talk about anything else but his girlfriend, and it will probably be his fiancée, but now I will probably join too. When it was finally my turn, the lady rather reluctantly blocked my necklace. She packed it for me in a dark blue box with a white ribbon on top. I put it in my pocket and paid. It was before lunch, so I went home to eat quickly to catch up with the afternoon visit. I couldn't wait to see Rebecca again. A day without her is terribly long and goes by very slowly. I thought about what would make her even more happy. She loves when she can read my poems, so I thought I would write her a poem. I enter into your soul. I promise you eternal love. I didn't know what the word love meant, until I found out that it means giving love to you. The dark night suddenly turned into a blossoming morning. Darkness no longer rules in this world as it did before. The light came on behind her. Because it's warm from your heart. I promise you that I will never leave you. After all, even if I did, I would be committing a great wrong. I already understood who that love is. It's none other than you, my beauty. Poems usually take me a long time to write, but when I went to write it for my only one, it was easy. It was 20 minutes, so I started from the house. The car revved up nicely as I started the engine and pulled out of my parking spot. There were too many people on the streets in Bratislava today. Pedestrians were like crazy, running across the road as they pleased, and so I stood at every crossing. When I finally arrived in Dubravka, there was still a catch to find Becky's house. When I finally found their house according to the address Rebecca sent me, I quickly parked my car in front of their house to catch up. And I also took a bouquet of yellow, beautifully smelling flowers from the car for her mother. I rang the bell, and within a second she was in my arms. She threw herself around my shoulders, even though I was so tall that she almost couldn't reach them, so I crouched down a bit to make it easier for her. I greeted her and told her that today would suit her immensely. She was wearing my favorite combination, blue with yellow. She grabbed my hand tightly because she must have noticed that I was a little stressed from visiting her parents today. I took a breath and entered their living room, where her mother and father had already entered. Her father looked quite excited to see me, but her mother showed less doubt. However, when I gave her a bouquet and greeted her in a gentlemanly manner, she already smiled at me. After a while, I also met her younger sister, Livy. She was nice, looked to be about 15 years old. She had 2 fat braids braided up to her shoulder blades. Rebecca then showed me around their house. They had it very nice, spacious, and open. We went up the stairs to her room and she closed the door so that no one would disturb us. I looked it up there. On the walls she had colorful pictures or pieces of paper where various thoughts were written. I walked over to the windowsill while she sat on the bed. There were empty frames without photos on the windowsill, so I thought we could fill them. And then I thought what I was hiding in my pocket. I fumbled in it and pulled out this miraculous box. She looked at it for a long time, probably having no idea what would be hidden in it. She looked at me expectantly and full of enthusiasm. She slowly got up from the bed. I thought I'd make a little fun of her. I slowly knelt down on my knee. She widened her eyes at me and almost screamed. Are you serious? She asked me in disbelief when she understood that I was asking for her hand in marriage. No, I was joking. I laughed and stood up. I really thought you were going to propose, but it felt strange after such a short time. And you didn't like it? I asked as I held her hand and slowly pulled her into my arms. Of course I liked it, except a little early, she said. Well, next time I'll come with an engagement ring, I remarked and kissed her on the forehead. It was time to give her my present. She was completely beside herself with curiosity. I opened her box and she hugged me even tighter with joy. I placed the box in her hands for her to examine the necklace. So what? Do you like? He is perfect. Thank you. She thanked me and gave me a cute, short kiss on the lips. I pulled out the box necklace and straightened it. She turned her back to me so I could clip it around her neck. I turned it on and caressed her cheek as she turned to face me. At that, her younger sister burst into her room with a suspicious look like a detective. She opened the door wide and scanned the room. She raised an eyebrow when she saw me hugging her and her holding on to my neck, standing on her tiptoes as always, by the way. She narrowed her eyes even more and announced to us, "Enough sugaring. Coffee and cake are already on the table." It was a little awkward for him to hold her with her younger sister standing in the doorway. I didn't want to look like an intruder in their own home claiming their daughter, so I tried to wriggle out of her tight embrace, but she was adamant. She hugged me tightly, and I can't say that I was uncomfortable, but really we had to go. She looked at my face, and I could see in her that she didn't want to go yet, that she was fine like this, but finally she agreed. "I promise to take you somewhere in the evening, okay?" She nodded enthusiastically. She took my hand and led me down the stairs. We had coffee and delicious chocolate muffins, which smelled invitingly all over their living room. I told her parents where I study, what I enjoy, how old I am, and a few other details. After about an hour and a half, Rebecca announced that we had to go, even though I had plenty of time. She ran upstairs for another purse and informed her parents that she would be arriving around 9 in the evening. I had no idea what she wanted to do, so I just watched her carefully. We said goodbye and she walked to the car. Her sister enthusiastically waved me goodbye and told me to visit them more often, saying that it would only benefit her sister. I laughed and nodded. We got into the car and I started it. She fastened her belt and looked at me expectantly. She probably expected me to come up with something out of the blue in that moment, but I didn't think of anything at all. So, what have you come up with for tonight? I said sweetly and smiled at her with my romantic smile. She bit her lip and thought. After a while, she announced that it wouldn't be a bad idea to see the old town again. I love the old town, so I went straight out in front of their house and joined the main road. It was 4 o'clock and still quite visible, so when we parked there were quite a few people in town. You took her big sweet caramel sweater out of the car and put it on because it was getting a little cold. She let her hair down and tousled it a bit to make it more wavy. I watched her every move with fascination. When she was getting ready, she walked up to me and literally grabbed my arm. She set a fast pace, which was not her habit. After a while, I understood why she suddenly picked up her pace. It was from a nearby cafe that they played her favorite song. She smiled widely and I understood what she was asking. I grabbed her around the waist and by the arm into a dancing position. She bowed to me and I to her. The music played shrill and people looked at us in amazement. She probably improvised the steps because it had nothing to do with the waltz. I guided her and she enjoyed it. She closed her eyes and let out a ringing giggle as she accidentally stepped on my foot. Her hair was flying around her face and her legs were almost entwined. I was afraid she would fall, so I held her tightly like porcelain. The song ended, but her eyes were still full of music and dancing. I led her to the bench and she was still humming the notes of her song. All happy, she leaned on my shoulder and thanked me for my willingness to her crazy idea. After a few minutes, we got up to go for a walk around Bratislava in the evening. The moments with her are perfect. Each one of them is as if sent just for me from the distant sky. She is the angel who escaped from heaven to give me love. Do I even deserve it? A question without an answer because I don't want to answer. I don't care if I deserve it or not. She's here and she chose me, so I guess the stars are in my favor. I should probably thank them. However, in every moment of perfection there must be a twist so that this world can show you that nothing is perfect. Suddenly Rebecca froze. I didn't know what was going on or why she stopped so suddenly. I looked around and wondered what could possibly upset her. But I couldn't figure anything out until I saw him. The 22nd chapter. Rebecca. After a wonderful dance with my prince, everything was, as they say, like in a fairy tale. Simply perfect. I held my personal treasure tightly in my arms and didn't intend to let him out of my sight for even a second, and I'm guessing he didn't either. We were walking around the square when I spotted him in it. How the hell is it that just when I have everything in the world, everything has to go wrong? I stiffened as if scalded and slowed down. The very person who was at the bottom of my meeting list was walking towards us. Jacob noticed my sudden change of mood and looked at me in amazement and confusion. What a strange coincidence, right? After all, there are 3,000 places in Slovakia where Adam could move to, and he is right here. I can't believe I'm seeing him again after such a long time. The feeling of anxiety overcame me again, but it was weaker than before because there was someone next to me to hold me. I took a breath that I would continue calmly, but I had 100 urges to collapse like a total coward and hide somewhere in a small alley and never come out again. I was looking at the ground to avoid his gaze, because apparently he had already noticed me. Instead of pretending not to see me too, he smiled triumphantly across his mouth like an idiot. So right now a state of rapid and complete flight has come upon me. I thought for a long time in my head only to myself and was so preoccupied with my cowardice to face my ex that I forgot about Jacob. He also apparently registered Adam, even though he didn't know what he looked like at all. He probably noticed the direction I was looking and looked there too. He slowed down and I saw a certain anger on his face. I don't even know what it was. I saw him like this for the first time. Moreover, Adam was not alone. He had a girlfriend with him who was about 100 times prettier than me and had the figure of a magazine model. "That's Adam, isn't it?" Jacob said through his teeth. "Hey," I said quietly and looked at the ground. He stared at him even more and I understood that he was worried about me. I've come to terms with the fact that I won't change the past just like that, but facing it again was like pouring salt into a fresh wound. Jacob grabbed me tightly and pulled me to the right side of his chest. He grabbed me tightly around the shoulder, and I clung to him tightly. We were only 2 meters away from Adam. "Hello, Becky," he greeted suspiciously sweetly. At first, my plan was to sneak around the bench from the right side without being noticed, but that plan didn't work out for me. "Hello," I greeted and tried hard to look confident, but in vain. His girlfriend probably knew exactly what I was and how this stranger and I knew each other. She measured me all over with a look, as if I were some kind of garbage. And my Jacob measured Adam again. Jacob's nerves were probably about to break, but he held on. Jacob, on the other hand, was full of terrible optimism with a horrible smile on his face. "How are you? We have not seen each other for a long time." "Yes, Adam. Thank God we haven't seen each other for a long time, and it could easily wait a few more centuries," I thought. "I'm having a great time." I really planned a follow-up question like, "And you?" Let him forget about it. "I see that you are already in better shape. So is that donkey making fun of me?" I rebelled within myself. How dare he bring up my condition? I looked at him and I wanted to childishly stick out his tongue, stomp and shoot one in his disgusting face and turn on my heel. "Yes, she is much better than when she was with you," Jacob said suddenly, and the anger suddenly disappeared from me. He squeezed my hand tightly, which I used to wipe the smile off the face of the disgusting person in front of me. After Jacob's unexpected speech, Adam started digging even more, but he was overdoing it. He began to dig deeper into my former anorexic state. Now I wasn't the one who wanted to stick one between Adam's eyes. Now it was Jacob. He had had enough of Adam's stupid talk, as had I. Well, he cooled down faster than I did. He put his arms around my shoulders to show that he was protecting me and said in a rough voice, "Excuse us, we have to go." And he dragged me away from there. Honestly, I didn't even bother to open my mouth to say goodbye. As is proper, "I'm just all happy to get out of there." She walked away. Jacob looked over his shoulder at him again, but only for a second to see how far we were. He was so sharpened that I didn't have time to run away. He was still walking, not running, but my short legs were already screaming from the marathon run. He led us through some streets back to the car. I didn't know where we were because I had never been here before. It was already dark and the wind started blowing hard. A calm sunny evening turned into a cold evening. When we got out of the dark maze of buildings, in which if I was alone I would definitely get lost, we finally found his car by some miracle. He held me tight all the way to the passenger door, as if I was in some kind of danger. He sat down and turned on the light so we wouldn't be sitting in the car after dark. It was quiet for a while. Only the busy sounds of the city center could be heard, but then he finally spoke. "Sorry, I had to get out, because they probably have to take him to the hospital right now." "Well, really? If you hadn't done it, I would have given him one." "You, huh? After all, you won't even hurt a fly." But he was right. I'm probably as good at fighting as I am at sports. I certainly wouldn't have hit it, and his little girl would have caught it. He leaned back in the seat and exhaled loudly. He ran his hand through his hair and turned his head towards me. "You reacted so." Apparently, he couldn't find the right word, so calmly, it's unbelievable. "Weren't you afraid of him?" I didn't answer right away because I wasn't completely sure of my answer. I'd probably be lying if I said I wasn't scared. I was afraid of him. I never came to terms with what he did to me, and it was hard to look him in the eyes again, I confessed. He asked me if he could hug me. I answered, Of course you ask. And at that moment, he unbuckled my seatbelt so that I could reach him more easily. I went to his arms and leaned against his huge muscular shoulder. He wiped away a tear that was running down my face. He also leaned against me, resting his cheek on my hair. I curled up in a ball and whispered one most important word in his ear. Thank you. The next morning, unfortunately, I had to go to school. I would prefer to be with him 24/7 and without breaks, but that won't happen. As soon as I could, I called him and we arranged a meeting near my school. A day without him was terribly boring. The professor gave us a report that we have to process within a week. After lunch, we had one more class, which was the longest of all. For the last few minutes, I counted down every quarter of a second until the bell rang. I put my chin on the palm of my hand because even my head was already heavy. When I waited for the bell to ring after 100 years, I ran out of the classroom among the first to meet Jacob as quickly as possible. Today I wore a sky blue t-shirt with sunflowers and cream boyfriend jeans, plus my personal gift from Jacob, a necklace. I threw my backpack over my shoulders and ran through the corridors. A few more times it happens that I get lost, but then I quickly recover and take the right turn. When I finally found the exit door, he was standing right in front of me. He was wearing jeans and a gray sweatshirt, which I liked so much that I think I'll buy it for him. Today we just went for a walk around the Danube. Today we didn't plan anything extra challenging for my condition. We walked along the embankment to the secret swing. I sat on it and he started swinging me. I admit, he's quite the romantic. He rocked me high and I love high rocking. Suddenly he stopped swinging me and pulled out something black and about the size of a brick. Camera. He took a nice snapshot of me, even though, as you already know, I hate taking pictures, but it's different from him. When he finished taking the picture, he stood up to me and took a picture of us together. When he was taking pictures of us, I leaned on his shoulder. He was satisfied with the resulting photo and said that he would go and have them developed. I smiled. Finally, I will have our first photo with him in the room. Then we went home. He was like a proper gentleman to walk me to the door. And then we said goodbye. Every single day during the week, we met together in the afternoons. On Thursday and Friday, I learned the best news. All universities in Bratislava will be closed for 2 days. The reason is unimportant, mainly that I can be with Jacob for 2 whole days. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning when he was awakened by a strange noise from outside. I rubbed my sleepy eyes because I couldn't see anything and quickly got out of bed. There was a pile of tangled straw on my head when I peeked out through the blinds. Outside stood a familiar car and an even more familiar driver. I quickly came to my senses and stomped down the stairs into the hallway. I walked to the front door in my pajamas and felt the doorknob because I was so sleepy that I still couldn't see anything. "Hello, are you okay?" asked a familiar voice. There was too much light on me outside, so I looked with only one eye and squinted at the sun. "I'm fine, so are you," because I normally don't get up until 10:30. I still had half an hour to sleep, I said and laughed amusedly. "Go get dressed, we're going away," he announced mysteriously. "And where?" I asked. "That is a surprise." Clearly. And now I'm going to go crazy from guessing which place he wants to take me to. He told me that we were leaving in 15 minutes, that he had everything planned for me to go change quickly. I ran upstairs to the room and quickly combed my hair. He just watched with a smile on his lips as I teleported running from the room to the bathroom and vice versa. "And dress warm, we're going to a colder area," he shouted as I looked through the closet. I pulled out black jeans and a striped black and white sweater. I fixed my hair with clips and went down the stairs, where he was waiting for me by the door. I put on my Converse. The passenger opened the door for me, even though I wanted to start protesting that I should drive, because I hadn't been behind the wheel for a long time. He said nothing but, "No, then it wouldn't be a surprise if I told you where we're going." I rolled my eyes and buckled my belt. The car journey was long, mainly because I didn't know where we were going. Ours were both at work and Livy was at school, so I just left them a message that I wouldn't be back until late in the evening, That's what Jacob said. We were already somewhere outside Trenton when he announced to me that it was time for lunch. We stopped at a roadside grill and ordered Hawaii pizza. Something quick and filling. The waitress kept looking at him until I wanted to tell her that he already belonged to someone. When I started dating Jacob, I realized that I was really jealous. Jacob didn't notice the waitress's looks, and that calmed me down. I risked asking him one more time where we were going, but he gave me a nasty look, and from that look I finally concluded that I shouldn't ask anymore. We got into the car and drove far. I somehow miraculously fell asleep in the car, who knows why. I don't remember anything from the trip, because I only woke up at our destination. He gently shook me to wake me up. After a while, when I managed to perceive the surroundings, I recognized the place where he took me. We parked in a dusty gravel parking lot where the sound of water could be heard next to the sidewalk. It was sunny, and for the fact that October was approaching, it was already cold. I put on the black and white sweater that was lying on the back seat and got out of the car. I looked around. What has changed here since my last visit? The green silk of the forests was slowly changing to yellow, orange, and sometimes red or even brown. The autumn breeze blew through my hair. I snuggled up to Jacob, who probably noticed my excited look from visiting this place. How would I describe my feeling at that time? It was perfect, just perfect. You probably guessed where he took me, right? Yes, you guessed it. He took me to my favorite place, although I have no idea how he found out about it because I never mentioned to him where it was. We crossed the bridge and then the pebble path towards the pond. We caught a good moment because no one was swinging there. I pulled his hand and ran a little. I scrambled onto the wooden platform with the swing. You had a nice view of the nearby valley and a guest house where you can stay. There were a few people walking with their dog on foot or by bike. I got off the swing from the second step. He grabbed it for me because it's really heavy. Are you holding on? And do you believe me? He whispered sweetly in my ear. I nodded enthusiastically. At that moment, he let go of the swing and let her let me take off. When a person loves, there is no reason not to believe. At great speed, I found myself above a clear lake. The best thing about my so-called flying is that you don't have to think, you just let your thoughts do what they want. I slowly stopped. Jacob was standing exactly where he was before. When I finished, he came closer. I haven't been able to hug anyone like this often for a long time. Actually, I've never done it. Adam said that I was annoying when I wanted to hug him once in a while, but Jacob takes it completely differently. He opened his arms and smiled romantically. He knows how to mess with my head. What is happiness for you? I asked a somewhat philosophical question, the answer to which must be well thought out. He thought and I leaned on his shoulder as we sat on the edge of the other wooden pier. Interesting question. He pondered, and for about 3 minutes, only his breath and mine could be heard. When he finally spoke, this was what came out of him. I guess I would say that you are my happiness. When I see you happy, I'm happy too, because you are my everything, literally. I kind of expected it, and on the one hand it pleased me, but on the other hand he could have been a little more creative. I raised an eyebrow to see if he was serious. He nodded as if he could read my mind. The 23rd chapter. Jacob. She asks such challenging questions. I thought suddenly. With the question, what makes you happy? You will keep a person busy. I looked somewhere at the semi-clear sky and plunged into my mind. What is happiness? Feeling? State of mind? An illusion that people made up to make themselves better, so that they have something to rise above when they are at their worst? A tangible thing that can be bought? Or property that we can own? To be honest, I've been wondering what happiness actually is for a long time. In my opinion, happiness cannot be bought or made or even found. People are chasing happiness in order to have a better life. Yes, it's nice to buy something for clothes once in a while, go on vacation, buy a new car and so on, but it has nothing to do with happiness at all. Happiness and a happy life are two almost the same thing. Nobody has a happy life, and that's why I think it's an illusion, because a happy life doesn't exist. Have you ever heard of someone who would honestly tell you without lying that they have a happy life? I don't, and that's it. Everyone could be happy and lucky if we didn't make things more complicated. Admit that puberty is responsible for a lot of things, and don't tell me it isn't. In adolescence, we hate mornings, we are stressed at school, we have no motivation to study again after school, we are tired in the evening, and at night we run out of energy and thoughts make us cry. Each of us changed during puberty. We were different people every morning. But with the changes, we moved forward, and the more we fell, the stronger we became. If we smiled at ourselves in the mirror in the morning, instead of looking for faults, we would start anew. If we didn't complicate our days with unnecessary things, we would be really happy. Don't cry over things you know you can't change and rise above people who don't even reach your ankles. So, we have closed the view of a happy life, and now let's get to that happiness. After much thought, I finally figured out what the term happiness means. Happiness is contentment. If you are satisfied, you are happy. It is simple. After all, anyone who is satisfied can be happy. If you don't like yourself in the mirror, then don't look in the mirror. It sounds silly, but that's what it's about. Throw out unnecessary things from life and happiness will find you. Yes, it will find you, not you him, and it has already found you. You just have to allow it to enter your life. You look in vain for a four-leaf clover among clovers when happiness is flying somewhere in your head. Open the door to his life and watch the changes he will make in your life. And what is my happiness? I opened the door to my happiness the day my lady came out of her school. And to tell the truth, she was the lucky one in my mind the whole time. Admittedly, I didn't know what my girl would look like. I'm not omniscient, but I imagined her very much like that. Curly hair, big brown eyes, ruby red lips, and a lovely bright smile. Clumsy when I walk so I can hold her hand when she walks awkwardly, both feet left when dancing, in denial when I kiss her, smiling at my, sometimes, dry jokes and timid at scary movies. That was my idea of happiness, and happiness listened to me. I don't need anything more in my life, just the belief that she is safe and in no danger. There must be something between heaven and earth after all, when superhuman powers brought a being like her to me. No matter who or what I owe my happiness to, I promise that if I breathe only for her. If my heart beats, it beats only for her. If I live only for her. And if I love only her. Because the happiness that found me in life bears her name. I somehow summed up all my philosophical thoughts in one sentence. For a few moments her eyes looked confused, but then she understood my words. It might sound like a cliché, but I don't think so. In my opinion, words spoken from the heart are not clichés. I leaned towards her and looked into her sparkling eyes. I gently stroked her hair. She turned to me and stared into my soul. I felt how she touched her. And suddenly she looked at the wooden boards of the pier. She was still shy when I approached her. She tucked her falling hair back behind her ear and looked up when we were only inches apart. I wrapped my arms around her waist and pulled her to me. How to stop time? Kiss. Do you love me? She asked. I smiled and was proud to answer yes. Day after day I thought of her. Night after night I dreamed about her, and she asks me if I love her. Yes, I love her. If I have to add some simile to our love, I would only say these words. Look at the sky. Feel her hugs. How to kiss her? I have no idea. She is a diamond among the stars. She the brightest ray. She the sun in the sky. She is the key to my heart. 100,000 stanzas would not catch her. 100,000 verses would not be enough. 100,000 letters would not be enough to express an addition to her gentle beauty. Like a clear sky to the stars. I fall at her feet, crazy with love. I didn't want another. The stars are in our favor. Apparently the universe already knows that she is made for me. After all, love is the epicenter of souls. Day by day, I love her even more. And I bow to the stars, that they have found true love for me. I closing the starry curtain. The 24th chapter. Rebecca. On the way back, Jacob told me that we were going to his house, that he wanted to show me his apartment. I had no objections. I just had to let my mother know that I would not be coming home until the next day. She had never left me alone with a guy overnight before, so I listened to a long lecture on manners. When I thought she was done, she asked Jacob in his ear and gave him a lecture about what he can and can't do. When I listened to my mother's monologue on the phone and observed Jacob's expression, I felt extremely embarrassed. Mom sometimes exaggerates, but I didn't know that this much. Jacob, it seems, took it seriously and politely agreed to all his mother's orders. They talked on the phone for a few minutes. To make matters worse, the father also joined the conversation. A hand flew to my forehead as the kissing debate suddenly began. It almost beat me and I was already feeling embarrassed. After all, I understand that they are concerned about me, but they already overdid it. I snatched the phone from Jacob's hand and explained to ours that I knew what to do, wished them good night, and ended the call. Phew. From your mother's monologue, it was clear that I must not even touch you anymore, and my father also gave me a detailed lecture. He laughed in amusement, even though I knew he was serious. I raised my eyebrows and said, "Don't take them for granted. This is nothing compared to what I heard when I told them about you." Mom almost went crazy when she found out I was going out with someone I only know on the internet. Jacob smiled softly. We were almost in Pirzalka. We walked through the windy streets and parked in front of a medium-rise block of flats. I got out of the car. He came up to me unexpectedly, grabbed me around the waist, and gave me the longest kiss I've ever received under the bright evening lamp. Do you know what Mom said? I suddenly pulled away from him. I put on an angry expression and pursed my lips. He was really confused. But after a while he realized that my anger was just playing. "You can't lie," he said and hugged me close. We went up the stairs and came to the mahogany door of the apartment, number 9, by the way. He had everything furnished in a modern style with timeless colors such as white, gray, beige, and pieces of black only complemented it. We came to the living room, where he had a sofa bed. He told me to settle down while he prepared something for dinner. I didn't sit on the couch for long. I had to go see what was cooking there. He shook his head in amusement and pulled out the pan. I peeked over his shoulder to see what kind of treat it would be. I recognized risotto by the smell. Yum! I asked him which cupboard contained the plates and cutlery. I took out a set of pale green plates and placed them on the wooden table. He brought dinner to the table and we ate together, then washed the dishes and mopped them. After dinner, I jumped into the shower. To tell the truth, his t-shirt served me as pajamas because I didn't take it from home. While he was in the shower, I was trying to find the Netflix remote in the coffee table next to the couch. I finally found her and turned on the TV. I hurriedly flipped through the channels, but when I found out that there was no good movie on them, I finally chose the beloved Netflix, which never disappoints. I grabbed a blanket and snuggled into it, looking for a good movie. I heard the lights go out in the bathroom, which meant that he was going to watch a movie. I quickly ran down to get a glass of water when he suddenly surprised me. "That shirt is big for you, isn't it? You literally swim in it. Don't you want smaller?" he said, and I immediately shook my head. "I like oversize." "Okay," he smiled, "and what genre of film did you choose?" That's a good question. "Come, let's pick something together," I suggested, pulling his hand. He had a slightly smaller couch, so I pressed myself all the way to him. I rested my head on his chest contentedly. He chose some romance. We watched it late into the night. Well, my eyes fell at the final scene at the wedding of the young couple. The 20th chapter. Rebecca. It was morning, about 8:40, when I was awakened by my eager mother's phone. I found 7 missed calls. The first was heard already at 6:51. I was terribly sleepy and it took me a while to figure out where I actually was. I was still at Jacob's apartment, but it was unusual because I usually wake up in my bed. I yawned and looked behind me to see if Jacob was still sleeping. Of course he was asleep. I felt for the phone and picked up the ringing signal. "Mom, calm down, I'm fine, we just got up," I said calmly. Mom jumped out of her skin, and I don't even know why, because nothing happened. She asked me if we kept the specified distance from each other. Yes, I know that he was at most a few centimeters from me, so the distance wasn't violated. She even informed me that I had to return home within an hour, because she would personally come for me. Jacob woke up in the meantime and looked at me confused when he saw me with a mobile phone in my hand. I just looked at him, shrugged my shoulders, and indicated the word mom with my lips. He looked surprised and walked to the kitchen to make breakfast. After a long phone call, I finally put the phone back on the table. I traced on my watch that I had to be home at 10 o'clock. For now, Jacob made sausages and pastries and prepared the cutlery. I quickly changed, combed my bun, and walked back to the table. After breakfast, we cleaned up a bit, and then I waited for Jacob while he changed. While I was still cleaning the wooden chest of drawers, I came across a pale cabinet. I was curious what was in it. In the cabinet were poems written by Jacob himself. I read the poems from that mysterious box. They were magical, but one of them caught my attention the most. From time to time, she knocked on the door. I might have invited her. Maybe not. He wants to know me. He wants to talk to me. Well, how about a question? Are you going to open for me? I follow her steps, her tracks. Tears fell on the pillows, like big puddles. She left. She was here for the last time. He won't come back. He doesn't have time for me anymore. Rejection is betrayal. Go open it, you. My good advice. My chance disappeared like a cloud of smoke. She left. She won't come back. That was the last sign of breath. The poem about meeting and leaving had something miraculous in it, something full of metaphors. Metaphors are found in every sentence of a poet, whether he is writing about love, sadness, pain, loss, or joy. There is always a meaning conveyed in every sentence that comes to your mind as soon as you read that sentence. "Do you like it?" whispered Jacob suddenly. "Take it. Let it make you happy at home, and every time you read it, you will remember me." He wiped away a tear that was running down my cheek with the tip of his finger. I cried from amazement, and I felt quite embarrassed because I looked like a kindergartner. When I calmed down in his embrace, he let me go and told me that we had to go, because if we were late, ours won't let him anywhere. I put on my shoes and Jacob took the car keys. We went down to the car and got in. I reached for the backpack on the back seat, which contained my phone, that I was going to call my mother. We started and came to the first turn. As we were leaving the main road, we could hear screams and skidding of cars from the right side of the road. The fear in Jacob's eyes was indescribable. In 1/100th of a second, a brown van was rushing towards me from my side in the opposite direction. A 2-ton vehicle hit the door on the passenger side, where I was sitting, at full force. There was a loud crash of the metal door of Jacob's car and the hood of the van being crushed. The van hit with great force, flipping the entire car to its side. I felt myself losing the floor of the car under my feet, and my back was no longer on the seat. In a strong impact, I felt the glass of the window cut my throat and hands. I managed to put my injured hands above my head so that the top of the overturned car did not crush my skull. None of this would have happened if I had buckled up. The car was overturned by 180 degrees, and with the strong impact, my ribs began to break in my body. Everything was ground so quickly. But this time it turned out even worse. Jacob was holding onto the ceiling and reaching out for me when he saw how the car was sweeping me. He was already holding me when at that moment the car wanted to turn to the other side. It couldn't get up and roll over, so it threw itself back onto the road with all its strength. But this time I didn't protect my head from the impact. I flew through the windshield of the car into a busy street full of cars. I slowly fell into a dark unconsciousness and slowly perceived and felt the burning pain of broken ribs pressing on my lungs. The last thing I remember from the accident was the sight of the bloodied and scarred face of helpless Jacob. He was trapped between the road, the van, and his own car. And then, as Jacob said in his poem, that was the last sign of breath. I just fell into the deep darkness full of pain. The 26th chapter. Rebecca. My eyes were still heavy. I could hardly see anything. Red and blue lights flashed everywhere in front of me, and the loud call of sirens could be heard. I was driven on some kind of rescue cart towards the rescue vehicle, and I fell into darkness again. I woke up again in a room on wheels that was loudly calling the alarm. It was dark outside. Everything around me was beeping, and there were machines, oxygen bombs, and people in white everywhere. She has recovered. I heard a muffled voice. My eyes were blinking and I was running out of strength. Everything flickered. I couldn't see anything clearly and everything hurt, but the worst part was my lungs. I couldn't breathe and every breath stung my chest. All the air I inhaled and exhaled hurt me terribly. My lungs were constricted and my whole chest felt like it was in chains. Where? A sharp breath. Where is Jacob? I asked the nurse, but the sound of the ambulance drowned me out. My words seemed to hang in the air and then suddenly disappear. The nurse in the ambulance was preparing something on the makeshift emergency table. "It's going to hurt a little now, okay?" she asked me. I nodded, stunned. My phobia of needles was just making a mess in my stomach, and it started to really twist. The nurse injected me with a sedative. The muffled sound of the ambulance roaring past all the cars was the last thing I heard. I woke up with even more pain in the white-blue corridor on the 3rd floor of the hospital. The rescuers did not go very slowly with me. It must have been serious. My eyes kept falling and I couldn't see anything properly. I was dizzy. I tried one more time and asked a little louder where Jacob was. The nurse did not notice me. "Please answer me. Where is Jacob?" The words flew through the air again. No one listened to me. Everyone just rushed, and no one noticed my request. The more I talked, the more it burned. The hospital trolley on which they took me was very uncomfortable. In my entire life, I visited the hospital only once, and even then only when Livy had a broken arm. They opened a huge elevator door that took me up another floor. The nurse quickly pressed the button and gave me a desperate look. She kept looking at my chest, and I didn't understand why. After all, the pain came from the inside, didn't it? I wasn't right. The whole time I was sobbing from the pain, I thought the pain was coming from the ribs, but it was far from ending at the ribs. I gathered my strength and lifted myself a little to see how bad I was. A bloody wound lined my entire right side and crossed half of my chest. The stabbing pain narrowed into a deep dent between the ribs. I felt like they were broken. Slowly, dejected, I lay down again and rested my eyes on the ceiling of the elevator. The elevator stopped and the nurses took me down a long corridor to the end of the corridor to a large white operating room. The doctors were already there. I freaked out when they told me I wouldn't feel anything anymore. After all, it is natural to feel pain, right? They scared me, and at that moment it didn't occur to me that they just wanted to put me to sleep. Before long, I fell into a dark and unwanted nightmare again. Someone held my hand tightly, but my eyes were still too weak to look into the bright daylight again after the difficult operation. The squeeze was warm, nice, and soft, but not what I had in mind. Mom had tears in her eyes, Dad was holding her tightly around the shoulders, and Livy was crying into a handkerchief not far from the bed. I slowly blinked my eyes and squeezed my mom's hand so she knew I was awake. She quickly threw herself around my shoulders to hug me. I sobbed a little because they didn't feel the intense pain after the 4-hour operation. Mom apologized to me. My father kissed my forehead and stroked my face gently. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't have time to buckle up. The van was going really fast." "I'm sorry," I sighed. "It's not your fault," she said with tears in her eyes. It happened so quickly. Everything suddenly turned upside down and Jacob didn't have time to grab my hand. And then suddenly I flew through. My voice failed. I couldn't finish it. It was too much for me. When I calmed down a bit, I asked the most important thing that I had been worrying about for a long time. Where's Jacob? I asked my mother, I asked the nurses, but none of them answered me. Mom suddenly burst into tears, and she wasn't the only one. Tears suddenly welled up in my eyes when I understood what was happening here. No. I screamed in horror. Please wake me up from this scary dream. What happened to him? I said, my voice hoarse from crying. Come on, Dad will put you on the cart and we'll go after him, okay? Mom snorted. With my broken leg and fractures in my chest and neck brace, I had a hard time getting into the wheelchair. Dad was pushing me out of my temporary room. Everywhere was quiet. It was deep night, I said to myself. Dad asked his sister to show us Jacob. What kind of family relationship are you in? She asked my father and me. I'm his girlfriend. They brought us together. I whispered with tears in my eyes. She nodded and told us to follow her. They passed the mirror door, and it was only then that I realized how bad I was. I had circles under my eyes, scratches and wounds from the glass, and my whole body was almost motionless. We finally arrived where we needed to be. Room number 3-4 was not much bigger than mine. And that's what I saw him in. He lay motionless, weak, and barely turned his head towards the door. His eyes lit up when he saw me. Dad walked closer with me. I moved from the wheelchair to his bed. He saw that my entire chest was operated on and my leg was in a cast. Let's leave them alone. The nurse whispered quietly and led the father out of the room. As soon as I left, she started to cry. He caressed my face and motioned for me to lie down next to him. I did so and gently rested my head on his shoulder. He stroked my face until I fell asleep. Rebecca, I want to tell you something. Open it when you're alone, okay? And I love you, he said and kissed my forehead. I love you too, I whispered quietly and gently leaned against his chest again. The 27th chapter. Rebecca. The loud and frantic beeping of the machine woke me up suddenly. Jacob lay motionless. The heart rate machine went crazy. And suddenly, he fell silent. Jacob, please do not. Jacob, I shouted. Doctors rushed in and tried to revive him. Not, please. I sobbed as the nurse loaded me onto the cart. Save him. Come on, please. I cried and screamed at the same time. The nurse took me to the corridor. Jacob still didn't move. The doctors circled around him and tried to revive him, but it was too late. Mom took me in her arms, but I kept tearing away from her. I wanted to go to him and help the doctors, but I cried so hard that my tears soaked the entire envelope from Jacob and I couldn't really see anything. I did not know what to do. Should I scream? Cry? Begging? Everything suddenly went dark. The world seems to have lost the sun. My world has lost him. The reason for joy is gone, the reason for life is gone, and the reason for love is gone. I wanted to stop that night without stars, but I couldn't. It was too late. After my mental breakdown, my mother brought me back to the room. The doctors came to inform me that Jacob had severe internal bleeding. No! I screamed to my mother in her tight embrace, and the scream was suffocated in her woolen sweater. She cried too. A sky without stars, a nova, a dark cloudy night, that was my world now. I was still sobbing into my sweater for a while when the nurse entered the room with Jacob's envelope in her hand. It had your name written on it, so I thought it must have fallen to you, she said sweetly, but with sadness in her voice. Thank you. I snorted. I sent my mother away for a while, even though she was adamant, as she did not want to leave me alone in this state. Mom, please. I want to be alone for a while. I whimpered quietly. She nodded and left to see her father. I wiped my tears and slowly opened the envelope. I pulled out the letter, wet from my tears. It was folded into 4 parts into a rectangle. With tears in my eyes, I slowly began to open it. In life, it happens that we fall in love from time to time. That time comes and goes, but sometimes it's more than just a moment. We start thinking about her or him, the moment we look at him, her, but I found out that this is not called love, but only infatuation. I only knew love when I didn't have it in front of my eyes. I never saw her, never met her, could not imagine her, but the words she wrote spoke to me from the heart and spoke to my soul. Every night when I fell asleep, my soul moved behind her and recognized her. Love is when we think of someone in ordinary activities, and that happened to me. I looked for her in every little thing, in a flower in the garden, a cloud in the sky, a swan on the river, but more than that, butterflies reminded me of her. When I got to know her, I found out that she was similar to them. Not by looks or beauty, but by heart. Such a fragile being, gentle and gifted, able to love after all the pain she went through. In this world, we can't choose who will hurt us and who won't, but we can choose who we will love. And I made the right choice. What to add? The moments with you were beautiful. Your laugh, your eyes, your heart, you were my angel. I love you. I'm not going to tell you to live life to the fullest, because you're already living it to the fullest, and I'm not even going to tell you to forget me, because I know you won't forget me. Find your happiness and fulfill your dreams. Promise me that every time you see the sunset, you'll remember what I'm about to say. For decades, every romantic story has been written at the end. They lived happily ever after. Well, how about a little change, my love? They lived happily ever after and never stopped loving. The letter was over, and so was our story. Everything was lost. All I had left were memories. Tears flowed so quickly down my face. I needed him here. This cannot be the end of us. I went through the door to the corridor and ran to find him. I couldn't see anything. Everything was blurry. Everywhere was fog, darkness, cold. The 20th chapter. Rebecca. I had my eyes closed and screamed Jacob's name. I cried and clutched the pillow tightly. Rebecca, love, what's going on? Someone whispered. I couldn't open my eyes, even though I knew it was already light outside. The voice was becoming more familiar, but I couldn't hear it clearly through my sobs. Someone kissed my forehead and caressed my face. And then I opened my eyes. Jacob was lying next to me, hugging me and holding me tightly around my shoulders. I snuggled up to his chest. And then it started to dawn on me. Are you real and here? I asked. Of course I'm here, I haven't gone anywhere, as if I could. Then, I said, confused. I had to wake you up, you were crying, tears were running down your face, and you were screaming my name. But don't worry, it was just a dream, a nightmare. He whispered into my hair. I already understood, it was all a dream, although it didn't make sense to me, but it must have been. I suddenly sat up. Jacob sat down next to me and started stroking my shoulders. What's wrong with you? He asked cautiously. We were driving a car, we stood at an intersection, and then a van rushed at us in the opposite direction. Later I found myself in the hospital, then I was operated on. I had a broken leg, and you were lying in the room. I came behind you and then. I couldn't continue. He knew what came next and squeezed me tightly. I would never leave you here alone, I promise, he said and took me in his arms. Throughout that night I felt as if it was real. Those people, the hospital, Mom, Dad, Jacob, and last but not least, the pain. I didn't know that it was possible to feel pain while sleeping. But now I understand why I had this dream. This dream showed me something that I was only partially aware of before. The fact that I could ever lose Jacob never even occurred to me, but I knew that something would separate us in the end. But now I know that even death is a time of life. If I had to die, I would die first, because I wouldn't be able to live in a world where there is no his presence, his smell, the air he breathed, his smile, his eyes, and above all, where he is not. I leaned back against his chest and wrapped my arms around his neck. I've never felt safer. Even though I was sad, I never felt happier because it was just a dream and now that dream is gone. I opened my eyes and looked at Jacob. He was also looking at me. His eyes wanted to say something, it was obvious in them. "What's going on?" I asked with a hoarse voice from my crying. "You know that I never even thought about it," he said suddenly. Somehow I didn't understand what he was talking about, and so I was silent for a while. He started stroking my hair, twirling it between his fingers and saying, "I never thought I could love like this. I thought that love was just an illusion, maybe a state of mind that we as humans created so that we wouldn't be abandoned. But when we first met, this state of mind was no longer a state. It was a necessity. So if someone ever asked me what love is, I would say that it is a necessity. It's something we can't live without, I mean really live, not just exist. Until you were my necessity, every single day was just a 24-hour daily routine for me. I kept doing the same things over and over. I looked out the window at the same unchanged world. I breathed the same air. I kept listening to the same songs. The poems I wrote were still only about sadness. The tastes of the food were still the same. Nor the flowers no longer smelled that sweet, passionate scent to me, and then suddenly you came. To compare you to a flower is difficult, but I would say that you were like lavender. The sweetest that ever bloomed, fragile, without someone to put a sincere smile on your beautiful face. You turned the everyday boring things into extraordinary ones. I finally began to perceive the lyrics in the songs. I began to understand all the euphoria that people experience when they are in love, the metaphors of poets who write passionately about cliches of love. You showed me what love is. Because of you I started to really live. I never thought about what it would be like to lose my love. It would be unacceptable. I would not allow it. I love you more every moment I'm with you. I love all your imperfections because you are perfect with them. Just like I couldn't imagine loving someone again, now I can't imagine losing you. While we were just texting and I didn't really know you, I imagined your silhouette anywhere in space. I searched for your unknown face everywhere I went, but I was looking for you in the wrong place. I was looking for you here on Earth. But you or she was up among the stars. There could have been thousands of stars in the sky, but when I finally found you among them, I devoted every glance to you only. He said, hugging me even tighter. We looked at each other for a long time, and each of us thought deeply. Epilogue, the beginning. Jacob. I hugged her for a while to make her feel better. She also hugged me and rested her head on my shoulder. She closed her eyes. She was beautiful when she closed her eyes. The tears that hadn't dried on her face shone on her flushed cheeks. Her lips were like velvet and her hair flowed down to my shoulders. I'm sorry that I cried. She apologized and wiped the tears from her cheeks. Suddenly, I was struck by a strange phenomenon called déjà vu, a feeling of having seen it before, experienced it before, even though I had never experienced this with any girl before. No one compares to her. Our story was a story of love that started with a single message. At that time, I was afraid of love. I was afraid of falling in love again and again, of falling into the mirage of love and then despairing again for days after a difficult disappointment. I was afraid, after my bad experience, that every other woman I fall in love with will be like my Karen. But Rebecca opened my eyes and showed me that not everyone is the same. She showed me that difference is valued in this world. There are few of us who fall right in love the first time, but there are many of us who, even after, they will not stop loving all those disappointments. Love is the most important thing in our lives, because without love we just exist, but with love we truly live. Our message should have been written and our love should have been sent.